50 Ds. Yeah, ouch. 50 Ds. Ds. You can feel your legs good. They don't do much if you can't feel it. Alright, welcome to Ballina, everyone. Local time's 9:01 AM. It's 15 degrees. Toxic this. I'll give you some of the toxics, mate. Yeah, look here, mate. Hey, Deceiver, good morning. Lovely new freeware that was released yesterday for Ballina. Looks bloody marvellous. Done a great job. Absolutely awesome. Yeah, I reckon, Deceiver. I was really keen for it. You're so handsome, matey.
Don't talk to me with that moustache, mate.
Hey there, friends. Welcome. Another one of our Slant Alpha adventures getting underway, and for 2 streams in a row now. We are actually and truly and honestly Slant Alpha tonight. Flying that A2A Simulations Piper Comanche, and it is rare that I do 2 streams in a row in the same aircraft, but just got a lot of stuff going on in the Comanche that I want to get progress made on. So we've got our River Run series down the Yukon River. That's what we're resuming tonight. And then we're also working on the Boston Virtual Air TCC Wings Over New England program. We're starting to go through those flights again. Now, not all of those will be in the Comanche. Some of those will be in the Lear. Some of those will actually be in the 737. But a good portion of those will be in the Piper Comanche. And then the ZNY New York Air TCC Flight Quest series. And most, if not all, of the remaining challenges that we've not yet done in the ZNY series will be done in a light twins, or light twin or single engine piston, like the Comanche. So I think we've got a lot of stuff going on that we wanted to use the Comanche for. So we will have a few streams this month and next month, maybe even into October, where we've got several in succession in this aircraft. But it's a great one, and it's the only one that I truly do fly with only the radio-based analog style of navigation anymore. Of course, most of what we do in this aircraft is VFR, but in our most recent stream, we did end up doing some IFR navigation, some radials, some VOR, radio airway tracking. And it's always fun to get back to the roots of the channel, which we started 8 years ago, and we did mostly that. We've since branched out, and it's become harder and harder to do that in the simulation that VATSIM is of the modern airspace system, because the modern airspace system has moved in many ways away from traditional, conventional analog navigation. So in order for us to keep up and continue to do these flights on VATSIM, we've had to kind of change with the times. And it's not to say that we can't do vintage-style flying on VATSIM. It just becomes difficult, especially in busy events, when we're needing special treatment and special handling and different routing than everyone else and all that sort of thing. So I try to moderate it and mitigate it so that we're not being a burden on the controllers. But on a quiet night like tonight, or on like Sunday night stream where we were doing, old-school IFR GA-style navigation, we were just following Victor Airways at that point, and we're already kind of doing something different than everyone else was, but it also was just a regular Sunday night, no particular event published, and we were able to do that without being too much of a burden on the VATSIM controllers that were on. A matter of fact, I think when it's not so busy and they're not tearing their hair out, I actually enjoy, most of them that I've talked to really do enjoy working with general aviation folks that are doing things different than all the normal jetliner traffic going to the same 30 airports all the time. So, and I as a controller enjoy that too. So as long as it's not crazy busy and they've got the mental capacity to deal with looking up the charts for the smaller airports and the smaller procedures that they suddenly have to have at their fingertips, then I think most controllers enjoy that. Anyway, as I alluded to, we're resuming our River Run. This is our 5th season of River Run. We choose a river and we navigate it from its origin to its end, and we are navigating down the Yukon River in Alaska. We started actually in Yukon Territory in Canada. We did cross over into Alaska at the end of, I believe, the 2nd episode of this particular series and this season. We are in now episode 5. And as you caught the announcement on the social media earlier today, if you saw, this was originally scheduled or planned out to be an 8-episode run down the Yukon River. I've now consolidated it a little bit to make it a 7-episode run, so we can get it done that much more quickly, and we should wrap it up by the end of September, actually. And that will allow us to devote the Comanche streams to those other 2 projects that I really am keen to get moving on, which is the Boston Virtual Air TCC Wings flights and the ZNY Flight Quest challenges. So we'll be able to devote October to just that. And then on top of that, we are on the cusp of expanding the Slant Alpha hangar from 5 airplanes to 6 airplanes, as I am feeling very, very close to being comfortable enough to get that new in-a-builds and working title-enhanced Boeing 707 on stream for you. I have a flow list that I feel I'm very comfortable with. I do need to run through it to make sure I've got everything in the right spots. I had to move stuff around to kind of comply with some of the semi-realistic flows that I picked up from another live streamer that knows a little bit more about the ins and outs of the aircraft than I certainly do. And I don't certainly purport that I will ever know the ins and outs of the aircraft. This particular streamer was following flow lists based on United's actual manuals for the aircraft, which of course I will never be on that level. As long as I am comfortable with kind of getting through the normal, like the normal procedures in the aircraft for a full flight start to finish, I will be happy with that. I do need to run my flow list through and check it, cross-check it against the actual in-aircraft checklists that are built into the EFB. So I'll flip through each of those and make sure that what's showing there is consistent with what I've got down. And then I'll do an off-stream practice flight. And as long as all goes well, I'll be bringing that on the stream to you in rather short order. Matter of fact, I've set aside, I think, the second Friday in September. Originally, I had set that slated that night for the 737, but if I'm comfortable with the 707 by that point, that will be when you first see it on stream, unless I'm able to sneak in a surprise stream between now and then. So September, I think that's actually September 11th. Not that it would be related to the anniversary of the attacks, but I think that would end up being the night that we bring the 707 out for the first time, possibly. So pencil that into your calendar for now, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm very, very excited, and I've found a 1970 Pan Am schedule that's got a lot of fun looking stuff. In 1970, apparently the 707 was the bulk of Pan Am's medium haul flying. They did the longer hauls. They had just started flying the 747, and of course that schedule was very big on promoting where exactly you can find that aircraft. And then the 727 was mostly doing shorter domestic flights within Germany, it looks like. But, I will be looking to replicate some of the national and international travel in that 707. Just don't eat the fish if you're going from Los Angeles to Chicago, right? Yeah, indeed. And, of course, that 707 had a very propliner kind of sound to it, which was interesting. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to kind of maybe developing a series within the stream of reenacting some of the old Pan Am itineraries and really branching outside of the U.S. I mean, Pan Am was a global phenomenon, right? Very little of what they did was within they connected the domestic U.S. with all kinds of international destinations. That's what they were. Matter of fact, you can might be able to see, it's I don't know if you can see just the very corner of it. My sister and brother-in-law for my birthday this past year gave me a Pan Am board game, and you might be able to see just on the corner of the memorabilia shelf that it's sitting kind of right there above my finger. I'm not quite sure how much of it you can see there in the very corner of the studio view, but yeah, just definitely one of the iconic airlines of the history of the industry, and I'm looking forward. It'll be some long haul flying, a little longer haul flying than you're used to seeing on the channel, but I think it'll be fun in a vintage aircraft that is built specifically for that. So it should be a good time, and I'm looking forward to getting to that. But right now, looking forward to getting back to our river run down the Yukon River. Resuming from Rampart, right up here, near Squaw Creek in the little village here. We're going to be proceeding south and westbound for the duration of the evening. Our first stop is here at Tanana, and this is where the Yukon River and the Tanana River join. And a matter of fact, if you were to hit that junction and go 100 miles to the east-southeast, you would end up in Fairbanks, Alaska, down here. We're not going to do that, but just to kind of give you an orientation of where we are in our journey. That first leg's going to be 53 miles. Good 25-minute flight or thereabouts to get to Tanana. You can see the blue ball over the airport, indicating that the METAR is marginal VMC, right now showing 10 statute miles visibility, but broken layer at 2,800 feet. If that broken layer stays where it is or rises, we should be fine. We should be able to cruise this at 2,000 feet. These maximum elevation figures account for the terrain up here to the north and to the south of our path, but along the river it's actually fairly low level terrain. This is 307 feet mean sea level here at Rampart, and it's only going to get lower as we go. 242 feet at Tanana. So yeah, if we can cruise at 2,000 or even 1,500, we will be okay. Continuing down to the south and west, this is a 90-mile leg, so this will be probably a good 45-minute leg down to Ruby. There's a beautiful settlement kind of in between the bluffs right there by the river. I'll show you that forms the basis of our slant artwork adventure, and I'll show you that in just a moment. That's a gold rush settlement, of course, as many places along the Yukon River were. This is also showing blue ball. This was moments ago. This was one of these was showing green. Yeah, the Tanana one was showing green. Of course, 2,800 feet broken is kind of coming up to where it should be considered visual conditions. We got a green ball here at Galena, so we do have kind of improving conditions here. They were all kind of blue and red before. We've got some red balls out here to the west, but it looks like it's kind of coming up and improving. So fingers crossed that that'll be where it trends. Ruby currently showing overcast at 2,400 again, so we could cruise at 1,900 and be okay there. Legal. Now are we gonna spend the evening completely legal VMC VFR? I hope so. I always kind of feel like I look like a chump when I don't. But fingers crossed that we'll actually be able to keep it VFR legal this evening. We'll see how it goes. Galena is now showing scattered clouds at 3,000, which will be very, very easy conditions for us to work with once we get over there. Fingers crossed that observation holds up. And then to the north and west of that is Koyukuk. I hope that I'm pronouncing that even close to correctly, which is where we're going to close out our stream for the evening, although we would be right down the river from Nulato, our next stop thereafter, as we kind of would on our next stream start and progress southwestbound and then straight on southbound toward the 6th episode, which would take us down this way, and then the 7th episode will swing us out to the Bering Sea and our finish line there. So that's the itinerary tonight. 4 stops total. Originally it was going to be 2, but I consolidated like I mentioned earlier. So Tanana, Ruby, and then Galena, and then Koyukuk will be our 4 stops this evening. And let's go ahead and get to it then, shall we? Daylight is waning, and we do have real-world weather conditions and real-world daylight conditions. I do like that I get to fly in real-world daylight conditions and actually still have daylight. Whenever I fly East Coast, I almost always crank the time back a few hours because I just don't enjoy flying in the dark. But since I almost always stream the after-dinner hour, I would always end up flying in the dark if I'm on the East Coast, and I just don't care for that. So I almost always cheat the time. But today we don't have to do that. But we try to fly in real-world weather conditions when we can. And today we'll see how it goes. Let's go ahead and start our walk around. This is the A2A Simulations Piper Comanche with a rather extensive walk-around pre-flight mode. And lots of things that you have to check in order to make sure that the aircraft is airworthy. Lots of things that you need to maintain and upkeep. I have already ordered the fuel, so we should have 25 gallons in each tank. And as a matter of fact, before I forget, let's go ahead and poke our head in and see that we've got 25 gallons showing in the right-hand tank. We can actually kind of come up down. Let's crouch down. Okay, yeah, we can see the nice light blue color showing the correct color and consistency of fuel that we've ordered, and it does look like it's about 5/6 full, i.e. 25 out of 30 gallons. So that has passed our initial check. So let's go ahead and hop into the aircraft, and we'll do the same thing on the left-hand wing tank when we get over there. We can open the window on both sides, just preparing ourselves for the clear call that we make later. We can remove the control lock because we're going to check the control surfaces, and I'm going to get the yoke out of the way just so we can see the cockpit controls a little more easily. Obviously, in the real world, you'd be able to kind of duck your head around and see around that yoke, but with a stationary view like this, it's just easier to get the yoke out of the way. That's why the sim offers that option. We've got the fuel valves open as well because we're going to do a fuel sump check out of the bottom of that tank and make sure later on that there's no water or any other kind of contamination in that fuel. One thing I did when I filled the fuel tank, I hit the button on the tablet that updates the values in our engine monitor. So maybe y'all can stop yelling at me that everything's flashing red at me, because maybe I'll start actually updating that at the beginning of each stream. Not that I'm going to pay any bit of attention to it, but at least it'll stop flashing red, saying that we're running out of fuel or some such. All right, let's start with the flap On the right-hand side, we want to grab it and make sure that it doesn't wiggle too much. There's not too much play in it. That would indicate that the linkages are starting to wear out. Everything seems fine there. And I'm going to stop talking for just a second, as you notice I did, just to listen to it go from one position to the next and make sure that it wasn't rubbing or catching as it did. Same with the aileron. We want to kind of waggle that back and forth. That should move nice and freely and also should not rub or catch as it moves past any of those positions. Let's hop back into the aircraft. One thing I forgot to do. We want to go ahead and turn the battery switch on and all the exterior lights, because we are going to check the lights as we go around. And as a matter of fact, before we even get too far, let's go ahead and check the rotating beacon, and then let's crouch down and check the strobe light. Can we see the strobe light? Yeah, the strobe light is indeed flashing there. So good. Those two lights are already checked. And I'm kind of modifying the order in which I do some of this stuff because I've been forgetting a lot of it lately. Of course, I just forgot to turn all the stuff on a minute ago, so I guess I'm not really improving. We don't have any... We've got, like, I think a partial gallon in each of the two tip tanks, but not enough to worry about. We're not going to need it, so I'm not going to worry about a sump check of it. So we'll just take up the tie down, take up the wheel chock, and make sure, we want to make sure the landing light is lit on that side, and yes, it is. Okay. As we get up to the side of the plane here, we'll crouch down and we'll do the fuel sump check. So there we go, under the wing root there. We're just going to pull a little sample out of the bottom of the fuel tank, and that's why I have to have the fuel valves open, by the way. Well, first of all, we make sure that we're not hitting water, which is settled into the bottom of that tank. And if we have, it's not that big a deal. You just keep pulling water out until you get to the fuel. Water would settle to the bottom because it's a little bit more dense than the fuel. But there's no water. We're hitting fuel right away, which is good, and there's no signs of any contamination in that fuel, so we're good there. We'll go ahead and close that up, and we'll move on. Let's run around the front. Let's make sure there's no obstructions of any kind. Foreign object debris in the air intake, and the A2A does simulate that. So we do have to check that, and we want to make sure there's no damage to the prop. Everything looks good there. Iowa Scotsman is here. And I don't know if I said hi to Kenny Monster. Kenny Monster poked his head in a few minutes before the stream went live just to say hi, and that he would be flying and lurking. So Kenny Monster, hello. CB Flyer, we acknowledged your message, but hello formally if I didn't say so. And Iowa Scotsman just checked in. All right, our oil is still a semi-light tan color. Doesn't really look that dark yet. It's starting to get dark, but it's still plenty light that it's good quality oil for the moment. And it's right there at the 9 mark. It's probably got 10 quarts in it, but as long as it shows at or above the 9 when it's cold, then that's plenty good oil quantity there. And like I said, nice semi-light tan color. We got a few flights left on that oil before we need to drain it and change the oil and filter, so we're good for now. Let's pull the wheel chock, let's pull the tie down, and let's crouch down and get the pitot cover as well, and we'll do the fuel tank check on the back side. I think it might just be easier to get to from the back. The landing light's lit. The navigation light's lit. And again, we're not going to do a sump check on the tip tank as we really don't have any fuel in it to speak of. Aileron moves freely, no rubbing or catching. And then the flap should not move freely. And should also not rub or catch anywhere. Okay. And then, oops, where'd my walking control? This is where we'll go ahead and, do we need to, can we hop up? Yeah, I guess we can't hop up on the wing from that. I thought we were going to be able to get to that a little bit more easily from the back. Oh my gosh, now I'm stuck. Okay, there we go. Alright, so we'll do this from the front, but we're not really going to be able to see it too clearly. But we'll presuppose that we are leaning our head over and making sure that we can tell that the tank is approximately 5/6 full, 25 out of 30 gallons, and the correct color and consistency for the type of fuel that we've ordered, and then we'll go ahead and replace that cap there. I did say the other landing light. I'm pretty sure I did. And we already checked strobe, and we already checked beacon, so we're good with the lights. We just got to get the rear tie down, which we'll go ahead and grab from here. No, maybe we can't. The click spots only show up when you're really close enough to physically do it. Grab the horizontal surface to make sure that it moves freely, and then the vertical surface should move, but not as freely, since that's tied into nose wheel steering. One thing I did forget on this side, we want to check our static port, make sure that there's no obstructions in that, so that we get good readings on our pitot and static. instruments. Okay, yeah, no blockages there. And then we got one on the starboard side to check as well. Yep, right about there. So no blockages there. And then last but not least, we will go ahead and open up our baggage compartment. And we'll throw in my duffel bag, toolkit, and small suitcase, and the rest of that stuff can go away. Alright, so that's a good pre-flight check, all done. And I remembered most of it without having to go back. We had to circle back over a couple more minor things, but that wasn't too bad. Let's latch that door, and yeah, close it, and then latch that door. We got the windows open, like I mentioned. We can turn the strobes off and landing lights off. Let us turn on the fuel pump, and I'll unlock the primer. We're going to wait to pull the primer. Oh, let's, I don't think it matters if the mix is in or out when you do this, but I feel like it might matter. I think we've tested it and found that it doesn't, but I like to have the mix in when we're doing our fuel pressurization and our primer. I'm not sure where that mix lever is in the sequence. I guess the primer is before it. But just for peace of mind, I like having that mix in when we do this part. But anyway, we've got fuel pressure, and we've pulled some fuel into the carburetor to prime the starting process. We can pull the throttle out, but we'll increase it to maybe about 10% there. We can relock that primer. And yeah, we're ready to go ahead and start. We'll get the magnetos to right, then left, then both. This is where we'll yell, clear, 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 clear. We'll engage the starter, and we'll advance the throttle ever so gradually. Okay, engine picks up there. We got the throttle, which will back off to 1,000 RPM as quickly as we can. We'll note on the lower left-hand side of that cluster of gauges that the oil pressure came up right away. We can shut off the electric fuel pump, and we'll note that the engine has a built-in fuel pump that is now supplying fuel pressure, so that's good. We'll lean the mix out right to the point where the RPM starts to drop off from 1,000, and there we are. That way we're minimizing the carbon deposits that show up on our spark plug tips while we're sitting here idling. And yeah, so we're good to go. We can go ahead and get avionics on, and that'll start that engine monitor, which should not flash red at me since I did automatically update the fuel and oil quantities, hopefully. We'll get COM1 nav 1, COM2 nav 2. We'll go ahead and make sure that we're squawking 1200. We'll go ahead and pop that straight into altitude mode, because that way I won't forget later. Still flashing about oil, but I guess it should not be flashing about the fuel. I don't know. 51.6 remaining. I put in 25. Yeah, I put in 25, and then there was a little less than a gallon each side, so I guess 51.6 is the total fuel. That's good to know. Okay, one less thing for it to yell at me about then. Rookie 31st is here. Hey, Rookie, how are you, man? Alright, so we got, lost my place there. Oh, we got a streak going on, Rookie. 20 consecutive streams, Rookie. I hate to say it, man, but get a life. No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the dedication. So we're parked at a 121, I guess. 121, 122 maybe. We'll go ahead and spin the directional gyro around and match that. And then the altimeter, we don't have a reading here at Rampart. There's two things we can do. We can just choose the closest reading, which would be Tanana Banana, which is showing 2,999. The other thing we can do is we can set it by field elevation. 307 feet is the field elevation. Of course, it looks like this ramp area might be a little bit higher than the rest, so if it's not exactly 307, it's fine. Yeah, you know what? If we set 2,999, yeah, we're showing 360 here anyway, so it's pretty close. CB Flyers got Rookie beat by a few. That's a 25 consecutive stream streak. Guys, a bunch of streakers running through the streams tonight. I see how it is. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, we've got the directional gyro, we got the altimeter. Let's go ahead and set flaps for departure and trim. Man, I very famously forgot to readjust the trim before our second departure on last Sunday's stream, and the plane just wanted to jump right off the deck without me. Fortunately, I saved it from stalling, but good gracious, that was scary. And then Rampart, what's the right-click and open a new tab. What's the runway configuration here? I mean, we can kind of see. Okay, it's 11 and 2.9, and it looks... I mean, we've got this pad at the end of it. If we wanted to take off back over our left shoulder, we'd have to taxi all the way out to the end of the... back taxi all the way out to the end of this thing. I don't think that that's necessary. I think let's just take off in the 11 direction. So I'll put the arrow in the 11 direction because that's the direction that we're going to use to depart. But once we do that, we become kind of eastbound, and then we can just kind of do a left downwind and join the river. So really our on course is going to be about a 235 to follow this first little segment of the river. Obviously, the course is then going to change back and forth. But 235 would be enough of an arrow hint to make sure that we're following the river in the correct way and not the incorrect way. So I'll put the heading bug on 235 just to remind me that ultimately that's our, roughly speaking, our intended on course. But just so that we're following water that points roughly in that direction and not roughly in that direction will be enough for tonight's purposes. All right, Kenny, go lurk for a bit. Looks like you put up a 126 and a 1.06. Okay, we'll see how we do. Okay, what else? Communications. So the Common Traffic Advisory frequency at Rampart is 122.9er. As we travel south and west, Tanana is also 122.9er. In the interim, we should kind of be monitoring 122.8. So I guess that's what I'll have set. Let's do this. On the second radio, let's get guard 121.5. Let's transmit and receive on COM 1, but we'll monitor COM 2 as well. And then let's go back to manipulating COM 1, which is going to be 122.9er to start with, but then 122.8. And yes, I have a physical control for this now, which is really super nice. Everything that you've just seen me do with the radios, I did with the physical control. This is the wind control. I guess it's really the Airbus panel, but it's plug and play in terms of the common airliner types, including the 737. And it was just kind of plug and play, and the little displays on the device actually work. Now, for every other aircraft, the displays don't work, but you can program the knob and the buttons just like you can program any other knob and button on your setup just through spad.next. Oh, yeah. So we go SPAD, and we got my PA24. So it just shows up here, and you can assign buttons here to radio swap and radio event, radio 1 monitor, radio 2 monitor, and swap the monitor both toggle. Yeah, so you can just kind of assign controls just like you would any other button or switch, and that's how you can configure it for all of your other airplanes. Although the bad thing is the displays on the device don't necessarily show anything, but still it's nice to have that physical knob to manipulate versus having to kind of mouse over this one. It is a lot easier. So and there's my little plug, and I got this thing for free. It was Say Again Jim that won it in a raffle and decided he didn't have a use for it, and generously gifted it to me, and it ultimately came from Flight Simulation Association, the guys that put on Flight Sim Expo. So I did not get a promotional consideration for the device. It was a gift from Jim, but I did get it for free, and it was a nice little gadget, so I figured I'd give them a nice little plug there. Okay, I think we're ready, guys. Let's go ahead and get the parking brake off. And we'll taxi over to the beginning of the runway. Now, before I take the runway, I am going to do a run-up. We've had the engine idling at low power here. We have had it leaned out, so hopefully there's not too many carbon deposits that we need to burn off. But we might need to burn off a few carbon deposits. And so we'll do a mag check. And, you know, properly recheck all that stuff. Where is the... Okay, here's the entrance. And I'm not going to worry about back taxiing that last little bit. We'll just take the runway from right here at the beginning of the pad entrance. But before we do that, let's just hold the brakes in. I'm going to leave the mix leaned for this portion. We're going to go ahead and run it up to 2,000 RPMs. Oh, I guess I can close the windows. I didn't realize that I was still shouting over the sound of the engines. So that'll just make it a little bit more sound isolated for us. Okay, so we're running 2,000 RPMs. We can flex the prop lever down 3 times and back. And having the mix leaned while you've got the RPMs up like this, that helps to rectify that carbon deposit issue I was describing. Now that we've done that, we can enrich the mix all the way. So we've gained a little RPM. Let's knock it slightly down back to 2,000. Let's do a carb heat check. Make sure that we do see a loss in RPMs there. Kind of indicates that the carb heat's working. And then we'll check just the left mags. We see about a 90 RPM loss there. And we go back to both sets. And then let's check the right mags, and we see the same. Okay, that's good. As long as it's less than 100, 150, and roughly equal on each side, then we're good to go. Alright. And where are we? Rampart traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's departing runway 11. That'll be a left pattern and then a left crosswind departure. Sorry, we'll call it a left base departure to the southwest along the river. Rampart. That was really not a graceful call at all, so I didn't think about what I was going to say before I said it. Alright, so RPM's back down to 1,000. Let's get strobes on. Since we're taking the runway, let's get landing lights on. Since we're departing, let's get fuel pump on and pitot heat on. And we haven't heard anybody call in, but man, it's sure nice to do a visual check and make sure there's nobody coming as well. Probably should do that before we enter the runway, but now we've done it. Alright, we'll go ahead and set our takeoff power. Right up to the red line. Airspeed is alive. We got 60. Got a very uneven runway, so we got to put a little aileron input in to counteract the rudder input and get airborne. Okay, we'll hold on the gear until we're certain that we don't need to return to that pavement. Let's go ahead and uncross the controls. And yeah, now we can pull the gear in. And we'll pitch to 105 miles per hour. That's our best rate of climb. We needed to clear these obstacles. We could have gone with our best angle of climb, pitching up aggressively to about 85. But we're okay. We've got the terrain nice and cleared here. So there's 105. We can pitch up more aggressively now. And then let's go ahead and get our flaps in. And fuel pump off. Rampart traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's clear runway 11, and turning out on the left downwind now, then we'll be on the left base departure to the southwest along the river, Rampart. That's a little bit more of a graceful call. Alright, I'm going to get the RPMs off the red line. As a matter of fact, let's just level it out at 2,000 here, guys. And we are airborne at 40 after the hour. So that'll inform on our anticipated time to our first destination here. Alright, let's level it out. Let's go 22 and 22. Up overshot the RPMs with the RPMs back to 22, manifold slightly Nicely sitting on 22 there. Nicely parked on 22. I do need to lean the mix out a little bit just to get the fuel flow down to about 14 gallons an hour. We're still trimming down as the speed comes up. That way we're not picking up any excess altitude. We do have about 80 bonus feet for you, which we'll work on giving back here as we also watch the fuel flow gauge. Okay. So 22, 22, 14. Everything looking good. Yes, I did remember the fuel pump off. Yes, flaps are up. Yes, gears up. Still trimming down just ever so slightly to get back to that 2,000. We could maybe go to 2,500 if we want to. Doesn't look like we need to. 53 miles down the river, and it's zigzagging a little bit. So, I mean, if we were to put some intermediate points here, we could see it's probably maybe more like, I don't know, 65 miles. Follow the river a little bit more closely. And then let's... PATA is where we're going there, so we'll take that out. Take that out. So if we're going just to Tanana Banana, so 57.8, you know, with the extra points, you know, I mean, obviously the more you put in, the more it's gonna more closely approximate the total distance. We'll say round figures, it's a 60-mile trip for destination number 1. And Rampart traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is now clear of the area to the west. Last call, Rampart. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and swap into 22.8 now, the generic advisory frequency. I doubt very highly that there's anybody else in this area. Looks like there is a Alaska Airlines 737 flying over us at 36,000 feet. I doubt they're going to be a conflict for us. So we'll monitor advisories just because the code of conduct says we should, or shall. But we don't have to transmit on it because there's no aircraft in the area that would benefit from such a transmission. We'll go back to transmitting on 22.9 when we get to the area of our destination of Tanana. And again, looking at the chart in the U.S. is one of the areas on VATSIM where we actually do use the locally assigned common traffic advisory frequency. So that's why I'm saying 22.9 in the vicinity of Rampart, 22.9 in the vicinity of Tanana, and 22.8 en route, but 22.8 only necessary if there's somebody here that we might conflict with. And as of right now, there is no one. I talked earlier about our stop at Ruby and how they have a very, very picturesque gold rush settlement right there between the bluffs along the river at Ruby, Alaska. That formed the basis of our slant artwork adventure for the evening. This is myself posed with the settlement in the background and the nice bluffs and the river moving through. So here is our slant artwork adventure, and what we do is we collaboratively generate an image description that we feed into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT creates that image for us, and it eventually will become the thumbnail that represents this stream when we upload it to YouTube afterward. But if you guys want to make a suggestion to add to or modify that image in some way, you can cash in 500 of the Twitch channel points, aka the alphabets points, there at the bottom of the chat panel, and then that puts you in the running. I'll call your name when I get a moment. After you've done that, I'll call your name, and you can then let me know in the chat what you would like to do to add to or modify that image. And we try to keep it roughly relevant to what's happening on the stream that day, because it is, like I said, it is representing the live stream on the YouTube thumbnail, as the YouTube thumbnail, I should say. So we try to keep it roughly relevant to what's going on. But, you know, but that doesn't mean it can't be silly or fun or goofy. However you'd like to do it. ELW wants to get in on that action since I happen to be mentioning it. He says, add us the Star Spangled Banner in the background. So instead of going silly and goofy, you're going patriotic. Well, you know what? For it. Oh yeah. That's that would be a clever Rampart reference. I didn't catch on to that, but I'll take it. Obviously, it's the town of Ruby that we're depicting there, but no, we're departing from Rampart, and that makes sense. So, or the Ramparts we watched. Now, the Ramparts the song was referring to were here up the road from me up in Baltimore, but I get it. I get it, and I like it. I'm for it. And it's nice, we can kind of see the little terrain that the river cuts through this section of this section of the Yukon. Will we be adding the Rocket's red glare? Well, that's up to somebody who wants to cash in 500 Twitch channel points, I suppose. There, Ori, how are you? Good to see you. And while I'm manipulating channel point stuff, I guess I should make sure we're not going to hit any of that terrain, huh? Huh? Yeah? you're getting ready to rack yourself. All right, cool deal, man. Good to hear from you. Get some rest, which I'm sure is well earned. And ELW, there we go. Nice Fort McHenry sized flag. Nice sizable flag there in the background. Probably a fairly picturesque flyby available here. I should say so. I always love how the exterior sounds are temporarily like really loud after we do that. So since I said we're going about 60 miles, I actually never did follow up with the math on that. We're going at 60 miles and we travel 150 or so miles per hour. Now the gauge says 160, but that's statute miles. This gauge is in miles per hour. Of course, on SkyVector, the 60 miles that we've been referring to is all nautical miles. There's about 15% difference between the two. So I say round figures at 150 knots, you're covering 2.5 nautical miles per minute. So what times 2.5 gets you to 60? What would that be, about 18? No. 24 probably, right? So 24 doubled is 48. And then another 12 is exactly 60. So there you go, 24 minutes. And we took off at 7:40 Eastern Time. So about 4 minutes past the top of the hour is when we should expect to be arriving in the vicinity of Tanana. Now, let's brief our arrival in Tanana. Oh, it's showing a green ball again, so the latest METAR is kind of improving there. Wind is calm, so we can land whichever direction we choose. 10 statute miles scattered at 2,800. Okay, that's good news. So we're cruising just above 2,000 feet. And if we stay at least 500 feet below the cloud bases, then we're actually legally VFR. Which I say as though it is a surprise. Because it is. Let's watch the terrain here. I got a little bit of Formula One chicanery coming up on me here. But while we're getting ready to enter the chicane, we'll right click, open a new tab. Well, we can see it's got a RNAV to a barrel roll. Here we go. Here's my barrel roll. Oh, actually, man, I don't think I have the right camera. This is the best I can do, I guess. I don't have the right drone view. I used to just take the drone view outside and would do the barrel roll of the drone. I'll have to add that back in. Anyway, how are you, John? Good to see you. Welcome aboard. Anyway, so what we were saying, we were trying to go, okay, 7 and 2.5, 4,400 foot gravel. With wind being calm there, we could land on either one, so I guess we'll kind of set up for whichever one makes the most sense when we get down there. And I'm going to set the arrow to point at in the direction of runway 7. We can change both arrows. Point in the direction of runway 7 just as our visual cue. And I guess if we're coming down the river this way, that would be, and it's a right pattern to runway 7. It says here RP7, so it would be a right pattern, a pattern over the water to get to runway 7. That makes sense. We're losing altitude. We were losing altitude in the turn. Once I leveled the wings out, it's coming back up. But anyway, so the right pattern to runway 7. The other way you can see that if we go back to that right click, open a new tab. We can see that it did say traffic pattern right to runway 7. But it is marked right on the face of the sectional, that RP7. And I almost kind of expected it, like I was going to do that by default, I think, without even thinking about it. But indeed, it is marked on here that the right pattern to runway 7 is what they prefer. Anytime you got a runway against the water like that, it tends to be the normal thing that the traffic pattern to that runway would have you over the water. More often than not. I guess it's not universal, but it seems to be common. 22, 22, 14. Gauges are happy. So we knew it was about 60 miles. Now, if we take all the intermediate points out of here, let's see if we can figure out where along the river we are right now. I feel like we probably passed that big island already. We're in an area where there's a bend to the right with terrain to our left. And worse terrain to our right. So a nice wide bend to the left and a nice wide bend to the right. So where are we? Well, let's see. We took off at 40. It's a 16 out of 20. So we should be about 2/3 of the way. So I have a feeling that we're looking at this. Don't cheat, man. Don't cheat. Don't give me information I wouldn't have in the cockpit here, Mad Noob. My challenge to myself is to figure this out based on the old school methods that I'm looking right at in front of me here. And I may be right and I may be wrong. But that's part of the fun. Oh, okay. All right, I thought you were telling me because, yeah, and this is the magnetic deviation line. I thought you were telling me because you had some other source and you were like, oh, you're right where that line is. No, cool deal, man, cool deal. No, but I definitely, you know, I could look on VATSIM radar and see, obviously, or I could, you know, somebody flying along could tell me, oh, I'm on GPS and we're at such and such town, or, where the, oh, I had it one time where we were doing a Bush League backcountry fly-in series, and somebody was parked at an airport, and they're like, oh, I see you, you need to come a little bit further west. I'm like, stop. I want to figure it out on my own. But in terms of distance, you know, we would have covered 32 with 22 remaining. Yeah, that seems about right. We should be about 2/3, maybe coming up on 3/4 of the way there at this point. So if we're, yeah, it takes the fun out of VFR, exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, so I apologize for jumping to conclusions that you were helping me with outside sources. But you get what I'm saying. So we're at the point where the left-hand bend turns into a right-hand bend. So that would put us right there, if I'm at the correct bend. Now the problem is all these bends kind of look the same, right? So we do have to kind of temper our theory, like, what's the alternate theory? The alternate theory is that we're back here somewhere, but I don't think the terrain to our right was quite so high, maybe. Maybe it was, I don't know. Yeah, it was, but it's further out. Yeah, I still think, because when we started talking about it, I think we were near this, and I looked to the right, and I was like, ooh, bad terrain to the right. I think my theory holds up. And we can actually kind of see ahead, so there's a steep right bend, and then a steep left bend, and the river comes back right in front of us. So I might not be where I think I am. Yeah, it's possible I'm not quite as far along as I think I am. How am I liking Sim Update 6 so far, asks Mad Noob. I haven't really noticed much of a difference, to be honest. Which means I love it. Oh, okay, I see what's happening here. So, so straight ahead, we've got the river with the bigger islands, and then to our left, this has got to be the Tanana River then coming in. Okay, so that makes more sense. Yes. Okay. Yes. So what I was seeing was this being the next bend, but the river actually goes straight. Okay, so we're good. Our airport's going to be like right up in here somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and swap back into 22-9er. So as we are coming up into the chute right through here, we're about 10 miles to the east. We could tune the VOR in 116.6 and we would know for sure. But I think I've got very good visual corroboration that the airport's almost for sure like right in here where the arrow is. Get back down to 2000. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's about 10 east at 2,200 descending. We're going to add a right downwind for runway 7, full stop Tanana. Yeah, no, I'm not desperate enough for radio-based navigation. Oh, funny thing is, like, 116.6, it's already in the standby here, so it'd be one click to find out for sure. But no, I'm seeing these two rivers converge and then the bigger islands there. I mean, it's pretty much no-brainer, right? We're absolutely looking at this right here. So the airport's going to be on the right-hand riverbank, and we're going to do a straight right and then turn. Yeah, no doubt, Mad Noob. I've got absolute 110% confidence in my position right now. We do need to start descending a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and drop the power. Say maybe 18 and 18. We'll take it to about 1,500 for now, and then once we're... Yeah, I mean, we really want to be... Pattern elevation's what? Tanana's, we'll call it... Now it's 250-ish, 242. So we'll round up a little bit to 300. We'll say pattern elevation's 1,300. So we'll go ahead and just take it to that right now. Let me level the wings real quick. I'm steering, the directional gyro says I'm steering exactly a 280. Magnetic says we're about 10 degrees off from that, so let's put them in agreement. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is about 5 east at 1,300 right downwind runway 1, runway 7. We'll stop Tanana. Yeah, that's what we were just looking at, Ori. Yeah, we got it sorted out. The wet compass, aka the whiskey compass. And if you get desperate, it does not double as a mixture enrichment. So it looks like we have to go around this little embankment, and then the runway should be kind of on the right after that. So I'm going to kind of shade off to the left here. Yet another reason it makes sense to approach this one over the water, huh? So we got the RPMs up to 24, we got the power back down to about 17. We are below 150, so we can throw gear out anytime we want to, but we don't quite want to yet. I'm still not certain that I see the runway, but if I'm looking at the VFR chart, the runway should be approximately a beam the middle of that bigger island in the middle there. Okay, yeah, that's very much so. That's very much a runway. If we're at that confluence, we're about 2 or 3 to the east, which, yeah, makes sense. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor. It's about 3 east for 1,600 descending, for 1,300 for the right downwind runway 7 full stop Tanana. Alright, you guys can start putting some predictions into the chat as far as the vertical descent rate at the moment the wheels touch runway surface. There's no bot command necessary for that on this channel. Just a number into the chat, positive or negative will do. And that counts as your descent rate with or without the minus sign. The closest predictor gets an automatic entry into our monthly landing rate raffle, and the next drawing will be occurring on August the 31st. We do it toward the end of every single month, and in the case of August and September, it is indeed on the last day of the month. Not always the case that works out perfectly like that, but for 2 months in succession, it would seem that it will, unless anything changes with my anything changes with my schedule. So I'm flying a 235. This says I'm flying more of a 225. This says I'm flying more of a 230. But I feel like I'm kind of parallel with that runway. I'm not looking at the wrong thing, am I? That's definitely a road. Okay, yeah, there's a flashing green light there. That's definitely the runway. I think maybe I was looking at this, but now I see it's this here. So we'll turn it in. We'll turn it in toward the middle of this smaller island. Mad Noob says, I still love my shirt. Thanks again. Yes, you're quite welcome. Mad Noob was, speaking of this landing rate raffle, friends, Mad Noob was one of our recent winners. And elected for the Slant Alpha t-shirt. With the original channel artwork on it. Out of traffic, I'm actually 514 Delta Victor's right downwind midfield now for runway 7, full stop to Nana. Okay, yeah, that's a road back there. The airport would be like right up here. So we're gonna shoot for this little divot here, right, kind of in the middle of that smaller island. When we turn in, we'll start deploying flaps and gear here just to start getting speed under control. Cloud base looks like it might be starting to try and close in on us here. Alright, there's our little divot. Go ahead and get the gear out. Okay, first notch flaps can come in. Send out of traffic. I'm actually 514 Delta Victor's right downwind to right base for runway 7. Full stop. Santa Ana. Okay, so the arrow I think might be lined up with the runway a little bit better than I realized. Now that I kind of have a better sense of where that runway is. We'll just point ourselves right at this. And the runway is a 90-degree turn-ish. Maybe slightly more than a 90-degree turn to our right there. Let's make sure that we're in a very slight descent. 1300 was the true pattern altitude. Should have been the true pattern altitude, I should say. Make sure we're steadily coming down to maybe about 1,000 mean sea level in the turn. Go ahead and drop the second notch of flaps. Power just a little bit more. Keep a nice gentle descent going. Out of traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's right base to final now. Runway 7, full stop to Nana. Alright friends, last call for the predictions. Props and mixer full, fuel pumps on. Final notch of flaps coming in, and we'll start pitching for 80 miles an hour down final. Did end up coming a little high still. Okay, looks like I've got the nose over to the right to track center, so let's put some left rudder in. right aileron to stabilize that. Oh, no, no, no. Now we're shifting back the other way. A little bit of a bounce there. Of course, you can't blame me too much based on the evenness of the surface. My God, is this actually a runway? I know, right? Frozen gravel, I guess, is what this is. I don't know. Slightly uneven surface. Two of you in a row are in all caps on me. Mad noobs. Whee! CB flash. Gravel? I know you didn't mean all caps, but it was funny the way it came out. Gravel? Very indignant. Alright, let's get the strobe light off, the slope light off, the landing lights off, fuel pump and pitot heat off, parking brake on, RPM set to 1,000, the mix leaned to the point where that starts to drop. Yeah, I guess I'm glad that the damage isn't, the fraps and slates, yeah, exactly. I guess I'm glad that damage isn't modeled on those gear. They would not be surviving right now. But yeah, here we are. We made it down to Nana Banana. And, what was the initial descent rate at the moment the wheels touch runway surface? Well, hey, Touchdown FX scored it very, very nicely. Scored it 95 out of 100 with a minus 48, and the crab angle, it always kind of dings me on. But it was shifting back and forth on me, so I'm not gonna hold that against myself. But yeah, 48 was the number that registered that you guys were trying to predict. And okay, we had a little bit of a tailwind. Okay, that's fine. Wind was reported. The observation was reported. Oh, you can see how bad it was shifting on me there. I mean, not terrible, terrible. But when you see these sliders moving around, you know that the wind is a moving target. Now, this sudden drop here, that wasn't me dropping. That was terrain. That was me going from over the island to over the water. So you can see a sudden drop in altitude, but that's not indicative of the glide path that we took. We were at a nice stable descent here, and then we stabilized at a nice slower descent prior to touchdown. Looks like I did overflare just slightly, but with the runway rising to me, I think I can forgive myself that. And then put it down pretty close to center line and right in what it considered to be the touchdown zone, so gave me good marks on that. Oh, I mean, overall, I was happy with the approach, and then as far as the touchdown goes, well, hey, that wasn't my fault. Anyway, so 48 is the number that you all were looking for in terms of your predictions. So who had closest to that? We had 70, 58, 45, 88. Looks like that Ori Darkwind prediction of 45 is going to be the one to score. So Ori Darkwind. There we go. And what is it? PATA. Banana Banana on 8/19. Oh, it's not rigged, Ori. You just won.
It's not rigged, Kinney. You just lost.
All right. Well, cool deal. Number 1 in the books. I'm glad we're doing. See, so this is what I'd initially. So these river run streams, when I plot out ahead of time how many episodes it's going to take to get down the way, I shoot for 120 to 150 miles per episode. However, that 120 to 150 tends to be somewhere between, what, 5 and 8 or 9 stops, right? This episode was originally just to Tanana and then just to Ruby, which was 150, 160 miles. However, it was just the 2 stops, and the number of stops really is what determines how long the stream is. Just these 2 stops was really going to be a short stream, like almost like only a 2-hour stream. So when I saw that miscalculation on my part and realized that the 2-hopper was going to be, you know, only like half a stream's worth, that was when I was like, well, we could probably really consolidate that and get in another couple stops before we call it a night. Matter of fact, we might even continue to work ahead once we get up to Koyukuk. If we have the stamina and it's not too late, we might even knock out the next 2 stops just to kind of make sure we're working ahead of the game here. At the very least, though, our next one is Ruby, and this is going to be a 90-mile trip. This one, if we go straight line distance, it's 90 miles almost exactly, 89.9. If we follow the bends of the river again, I'm going to put in just a few points, not to get super pedantic about the distance, but just to get a better estimate of the total mileage that we're going to be following, and that way we'll get a more accurate sense of the total time that will take us. So we'll just add in, you know, a handful of intermediate points to roughly approximate the path that we're going to take. And so that comes out to 96.4. So that added, what, just about 6 or 7 miles. So it wasn't a major percentage, but that gives us a better estimate in terms of how long it's going to take us to fly it. And I would say, we do 2.5 miles a minute in this aircraft at cruise. We have to follow there from Loachster 212. Loachster, welcome. Good to see you. Thank you for riding along with us on our river run this evening. We're going down the Yukon River. Anyway, so 96.4, so just about 100 out of 150. So what's that mean? That means 2/3 of an hour. That means 40 minutes, essentially, right? Yeah, because 2.5 miles a minute, so 40 times 2 is 80, times another half of that is another 20, so 80, and that comes out to 100. So we'll say a 40-minute flight. Plus, you know, obviously we're not going to immediately be at 150 knots, and we're not going to do at 150 all the way to the threshold. So it's going to take a little bit longer than that. But we're obviously not going to be climbing much beyond 2,000 feet here, so we can say more or less 40 minutes from when we take off. So that'll put us right up to the 9 o'clock, and plus however long it takes us to get running again. So a little after the top of the next hour, and that'll be a good spot for an intermission, but we can definitely knock out a few more stops after that. So here's our next stop. Our current weather situation we already looked at. Variable at 3, 10 statute miles, 2,800 cloud bases. Variable at 3 down there, 10 statute miles, broken at 2,800. So the scattered at 2,800 is showing VFR conditions. That's why you got the green ball there. Broken at 2,800 foot ceiling is showing as marginal VFR. That's why you've got the blue there. But if the 2,800 foot cloud bases hold up and we're cruising at 2,000, then that should be fine. We should actually be legal VFR for this leg number 2 again. So fingers crossed, guys. All right, let's take a moment. Field elevation looks like it's pretty consistent with what we expected. Let's take a moment to update our directional gyro. We're parked at like a 336. So yeah, we do need to rock it back about 5 degrees there. It does gradually process out of alignment, so every handful of minutes, 15, 20 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with, you need to kind of adjust that back a little bit. We know that the runway 7 is the departure runway, and yeah, I guess we'll just take off on runway 7. We'll do a right downwind departure to join the river westbound. And again, communication-wise, the common traffic advisory frequency here at the airport is 122.9er. Common traffic advisory frequency at the destination is 122.8. Common traffic advisory frequency generically in between is also 122.8. So we'll stay on 22.9 while we're in the vicinity of Tanana. Once we're clear of the pattern, we'll be on 122.8 to coordinate with any intermediate traffic, which of course there will be likely none. But then once we get in the vicinity of Ruby, whether or not there's traffic, we'll make advisory announcements to let any theoretical traffic in or at the airport and around or at the airport know what we're doing. So 22.8 just generically en route, but 22.8 also at our destination here. All right, so there's the plan. Let's get to it. Not going to do an FOD walk? Yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Look for pieces of tire that I left out on the runway. Pieces of tire. Actually, probably more concerned about pieces of landing gear itself on the runway, not necessarily the tire, but I think we'll be fine. Let's go ahead and get the flaps set for departure. Let's get trim neutralized. And yeah, I think we're good. We're transmitting on 22.9. We're monitoring guard. And flaps and trim set. I think we're good. I think when we can forego the run-up, we're just going to go right onto the runway here. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor. We'll be back taxiing runway 7 for a VFR westbound departure, Tanana. All right, parking brake comes off. We'll bump the throttle up just a little bit, get rolling. Yeah, this is not what I would consider even runway service. I mean, crap, I almost might look for a flat piece of grass near the runway. You need those Tundra tires. Yeah, those big old puffy bouncy tires, huh? Yeah. Or Darkwind says we ought to do the short field technique. I think that's probably not a bad idea. So we'll get up into the ground effect as soon as we can, but then we'll stay in the ground effect to accelerate the rest of the way to our VY speed. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Ori. Actually, it was when we entered the runway, even though we were back taxiing, we really should have had the strobe on. But we'll go ahead and get the landing lights on now. We'll spin around. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's departing runway 7 now. Going to be right hand downwind for the VFR westbound departure to Tanana. Alright, pitot and fuel pump can come on as well. Mix goes to full. And let's go ahead and set our takeoff power. Alright, as soon as we're able, let's just gently lift off, and then we'll stay in ground effect here to accelerate up to our speed. We'll bring the gear in now that we've achieved that, and we're not going to return to that pavement. Not that pavement's a generous term. Let's pitch up for 105. We can pull flaps in, turn the fuel pump off, and we can reduce the RPMs to 24. We can reduce the manifold to 24. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 out to Victor's clear, runway 7 on the right crosswind. Tanana. Oh, Mad Noob. Mad Noob, yeah, a lot of the spam bots are talking about buying viewers, so I have viewers as a trigger word. Sorry about that. I'll try to unban you. If not, I think it's only going to be 2 minutes. If I get a moment where I got a hand free, I'll unban you. But other than that, you'll be back in a conversation in 2 minutes. Yeah, sorry about that. That's an anti-spam measure. I know you didn't mean it maliciously. Yeah, the thing is, though, that trigger word catches a lot of the stupid spam bots. So I'm unlikely to want to undo that as a term. All right, let's level it at 2,000 here. Let's get 22 and 22 set. We'll get the mix leaned out to about 14 gallons an hour. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 out to Victor's on the high right downwind, VFR westbound at 2,000 along the river. Midfield, basically. Westbound, Tanana. Yeah, I tell you what, CB Flyer, that's not a bad idea to suggest to the Virtual USA Flying Club, because there's way more short takeoff and landing specialists in the club than me, for sure. But we do some, what's it like the, what's the one that Michael Minuk, Tree Fox hosted? The, what's it called, the My Place fly-in. You got the same rules on your stream and you still got caught out by a Mad Noob. All good, man, all good. Sorry about that. All good though. I know, like I said, I know you weren't spamming me, but man, that bot rule does catch a lot of people. No, you're fine. You're fine. You know what? Even when the folks come in here and they let a naughty word slip, I'll say. You know, I never really try to hold it against them unless they're being deliberately malicious. If it's just an expression, and heck, man, I don't want you all to think I'm a prude. What time is it, by the way? We got everyone at just about 8, a little bit before 8:30 Eastern time. Tanana traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's leaving the area now to the west at 2,000 along the river Tanana. Last call. I'm a prude after 8. No, I'm not. So here's the thing, guys. I keep the stream family friendly as best as I can for a couple of reasons, and the main one is that I try to market the stream as an educational resource for those who are considering getting on the VATSIM network. Now, of course, the minimum age to get on VATSIM was 13. It's now 16. But, with younger, impressionable folks watching the stream for educational purposes, I wanted to be a good role model for the network. So I try to keep the language to a minimum. Now, I slip up every now and then. I slipped up in our most recent air traffic control stream. Dropped a little F-bomb. It happens. When you guys come in and somebody drops an F-bomb or an S-bomb, I know you don't mean it maliciously. You're using it as an expression. It's no big deal. We all slip up every now and then. I also do... I call it family friendly because I literally do have some of my family watch sometimes. So, I try to be a good role model for my mama. I'm going to try to make my mama proud. She raised a good boy. She doesn't typically watch on her own, but when my brother-in-law is down on vacation like they were last week, a lot of times he'll nose in on the stream because he's always curious as to what I'm up to. And I guess, so when they're staying with my parents for vacation here in town, yeah, they're watching me. And so I try to do my mama proud. So anyway, so that's the reason we keep the stream family friendly. But I'll tell you what, as soon as the camera goes off and the stream's offline, my vocabulary doubles, you know, to put it mildly. So it's not like I don't know any of those words or don't like any of those words or don't use any of those words. It's just when the stream's running. So I don't judge, and man, if you heard me talk sometimes when the stream's not live, you might judge. Let's put it that way. Yeah, right. We need to have the washing out with soap on the artwork. Yeah, could be, man. Could be. I almost feel like I ought to be holding a piece of landing gear in that picture as well. Alright, so yeah, we got the RPM to 22, manifold just under 22. Iowa Scotsman says, I don't picture you swearing like a sailor. You would be surprised then, sir. You would be surprised. I mean, you know, my personality doesn't change, right? I'm generally good-natured. I'm generally not saying things bad about other people. I'm not making jokes at someone's expense, typically. But yeah, the F-bomb, they come out pretty regularly. I have you all fooled, is that what you're saying? Iowa Scotsman, the ELW-124? Neither of you believe it. Well, ELW-124, you live close enough, you need to get your butt down here so we can go have a few drinks together and then you can really see in here. Yeah, CB, right? CB said it just as I was saying it. Yeah, you live close enough by, man. You don't have an excuse. I mean, I know it's not like right up the road, but... Alright, so let's do this, guys. Let's blank out the, I was going to blank out the whole route. Let's not do that. Let's just blank out the intermediate points. Yeah, once the summer crowd dies down, you'll take me up on that? Cool deal, man. Absolutely, and I think that's the perfect plan. Okay, so we've got this little left-hand, almost like, we'll call it like a 70-degree left-hand bend with a triangular or almost like a Mario mustache-shaped island in it, and maybe a little sub-island off to the left. And then just downriver from that, we've got another split and another little island. So let's see on the chart. Yeah, I think we must be at this one here. We probably went down that way, and I kind of cut the corner a little bit. But I think, yeah. And, oh, Brant Island. Named after our very good friend Melvin Leroy. Yeah, I think that would be it right there, probably. And Ori says, I'm not that far from, yeah, you're not that far from me, says Ori. I live in northeast Pennsylvania, north of Scranton. I remember that came up on our previous season of River Run. We did the Susquehanna, and we came kind of right through there. And I recall you acting as a kind of a tour guide for that stream. That's been a while now, but yeah, I do remember that. Yep, very cool. Now that's, again, that's not like right up the road. ELW, I want to say what we decided you're probably about an hour and a half up the road from us down here. Or you're probably a good solid day trip. You're more like probably 4 or 5 hours by car. About an hour? Okay. Yeah, you were probably 3 hours or so, Uri, when I was in the Baltimore region, but now that I'm down here on the shore, probably add another couple hours to that. Okay, well, see, if your Rehoboth is 45 minutes, I mean, we're probably a solid 45 minutes further south. So I think I'm closer to being accurate with my hour and a half or so. Yeah. So I was in the Baltimore region, Uri, until about 4 years ago. And I know you can't keep up, and I moved 4 years ago. No, I know, though. Like, I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah. So I am in Maryland. I am just outside of Ocean City, Maryland. But yeah, I was obviously the stream was very much rooted in the Baltimore region when it started. And that was the first 4 years of its existence, for sure. So yeah, you're not wrong to think of me as a Baltimore person, and of course, I'm very tied into the Baltimore sports teams and the University of Maryland, which is more of a DC thing than a Baltimore thing, really. But yeah, still very tied into the Central Maryland. So Baltimore, College Park, that's all very Central Maryland. But 4 years ago, I did move down here to the shore, and yes, still in Maryland, but yes, a good 2.5, 3 hours from Baltimore. It's so funny. Like in the summertime, this is a bustling little metropolis of a summer beach resort, but before Memorial Day and after Labor Day, it is much more remote than you realize it is, and it is. It's a good 2.5 hours from BWI. It's a good 2.5 hours from Philly. 2.5 hours from Norfolk. 2.5 hours from DC. We're really a little bit removed from everywhere civilized. Without getting, yeah, and it's nice, and ELW can attest that this area is really nice and peaceful outside of the peak summer season. Without getting too much, many of you know what I do for a living, but I'll say it vaguely just so I'm not completely doxing myself. The agency that I work for is partially funded by federal grant money, and the formula grant that we are under is rural. Even though in the summertime we're serving a city of essentially 300,000 people, because the actual residents number about 7,000, it is considered a rural function. We're very much an anomaly. Our statistics throw all kinds of outliers into the mix because we're not really like any other agency. It's pretty funny. Yeah, ELW bargains in the off season for sure. I'll tell you what, when we get down at Ruby, I'm going to need to take a liquid recycling break. So I say that, and then I reach for the beverage, which technically speaking only makes my problem worse. I don't know, by the way, that we are necessarily 500 feet below these bases, but we'll say that we are. Yeah, that's when my wife and I got married in November. Actually, my wife and I got married in December. Congressional interest, no. Federal grant programs. We can, if you want to DM me, I can tell you more about it. I mean, it's not really a secret. A lot of people that have been long time regular stream viewers kind of know. I've hinted at it a little bit as to what I do. But no, I operate a service that operates in part with state and federal grant money. But yeah, it's so funny. It's considered a rural grant, and it's serving a city of what is in the heat of the summer is a city of like 300,000 people. So it's really goofy. Yeah, no. DM me on Discord if you want to talk more. I don't mind sharing privately. And like I said, I mean honestly, like I've mentioned, the people that are here with me, you know, hours per week, you know, they're probably looking at me like, why is he being so secretive about it? He talks about it all the time. But anyway, yeah, it's silly. It's silly the statistical outlier we become because our population is so transient. Let's take a moment to take stock of where we are here. I am just looking at the shape of the landmass around me. I am almost certain that what we've just passed here is the tip of Cronin Island. So I'm going to put a GPS point there. Yeah, exactly. Most of the year we are rural. But then when you look at our performance statistics, they're outliers to all the other rural systems. Because like I said, 3 months out of the year, we're serving an extremely densely populated region. If you count people who are here for the weekend or the week as residents, which aren't technically, but we serve them as though they are. It's funny. The numbers just don't the numbers just don't match up with anything anyone else does. We constantly have to document why our numbers are so different than everyone else's. Good thing I'm a good writer. I get lots of practice. Yeah, Regen says, during my son's move-in day at WVU, someone told us the population of Morgantown more than doubles during the school year. So let's do this math, Regen. And I'm not trying to one-up anybody by any means, but just the reality of what I deal with. In the year-round official residence where I work, number 7,000. Anecdotally, we know that between people that have vacation homes, second homes, you know, people that are here for longer term, but maybe they don't count as official residents, we know that the population in this area is probably more like 12 to 15,000 in the off season. Dead of January, dead of February, probably 12 to 15,000 people here. In a weekend in July, easily 300,000 people here. So that's a factor of 20. The population grows by a factor of 20. There are lots and lots of seasonal resorts, coastal resorts, ski resorts. Their population changes at certain points of the year. We've yet to find one that swings as violently as ours. And trust me, we've looked. And again, not trying to one-up anybody, but obviously a big part of what I do is justifying federal spending of federal funding, and why our patterns look so different than everyone else's. So there's a lot of scrutiny there, as you might imagine. So I document it very, very thoroughly. Yep. We draw from all over. DC, Baltimore, Philly, even parts of Jersey, Virginia. Further inland even sometimes now. Yeah, the news is awash with stories of fraud. Indeed, aren't we? So yeah, we're very careful. We do it all above board, but yeah, it takes a lot sometimes to explain why our performance numbers don't match up. But anyway, yeah, have a good one, man. Good to talk to you as always. And yeah, if you ever want to know more about that, I don't mind sharing. I just don't necessarily put it out there on the middle of the stream. Yeah, EL says, yeah, I see those tags from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, even. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, we see them all here. Where are we? We got some pretty good terrain chunks and some linear shaped islands here. So just loosely, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention, but just loosely, I think we're somewhere in here right now. So that would say we're 43 miles left to go. And so 43, 2.5, what's 2.5 times what equals 43? So if we said 18, because 18 times 2 is 36, and then another 9, it would be 45. Yeah, so about 17, 18 minutes we would expect to be in the vicinity of our destination. You know, maybe closer to 20, because, you know, we are going to swing up this way rather than take the straight line here. But it's not, that won't add that much in terms of mileage. So we're going to say approximately, yeah, so near the top of the hour. I mean, we said that before we took off, and then of course it took me a few minutes to get up and running. So I still think top of the hour is a pretty reasonable estimate. Is that a strip over there, like an uncharted strip, or nah? It's just a kind of linear shaped clearing. Probably, I could probably land there, and it might be smoother than the last airport we landed at. But I don't think it's intended as an airport. Put it that way. Okay, and so what we have up ahead is a little bit of a shift to the left with some larger islands, and then kind of a shift to the right. Does that line up with what we're seeing here? Yeah, a little bit of a shift to the left with some larger island, and then a shift to the right. So I do think that, yeah, we're coming up this larger, this lemon-shaped one called Edith Island. I think that might have been, yeah, this one is probably this one here. A couple little islands in the lead-in. Yeah, I would say that is probably that one there. So up ahead, we got some 3 islands to the right, and then the more oval-shaped or lemon-shaped one kind of over on the left bank there. So what I'm pointing at here may be Edith Island. Now, we did learn that, you know, the VFR chart, of course, the VFR chart is up to date with current terrain shapes and forms. And we were in, it wasn't in Flight Sim 2024, but in Flight Sim 2020, we were flying in this region. We were flying down the Yukon River further down. We're actually going to get there in the next episode. And we noticed that the river had moved a lot from where it was on the chart. Like, it was visibly very, very different at the airport that we landed at that day. We were, I think we had taken off from Uniclete. I have a fascination with Uniclete because of the TV series Flying Wild Alaska, and I think we were doing some flying in and around that area. We came out to the Yukon River just south of the what's that little foothill range called that we're going to end right at tonight. Yeah, so I think we'd started at Uniclete, and we'd come out here to maybe Nulato, and this is called the Nulato Hills here. Or I can't remember where we went to, but we came up this way, and we were looking for, it was either Nulato, or maybe it was Koyukuk, or maybe it was Galena, one of those. And then I think so. We landed there, and then we turned around and we went downriver, and we were looking at I think St. Mary's, and I overshot. Oh no, yeah, maybe it was Anvik. Yeah, it wasn't Holy Cross. It wasn't quite that far down, or maybe it was Grayling. It was this one here. Definitely, it was Grayling. And the shape of the river and this island, Grayling was not anywhere near this formation. Like, it had changed completely. However, Flight Sim 2024, I think, was generated off of a less outdated terrain set. So maybe in 2024 we'll see Grayling is maybe a little bit closer to where it's depicted here. You know, where the water movement, the shape of the river around Grayling might be more accurate in the sim now, more updated in the sim now than it was in Flight Sim 2020. We'll see, I guess, when we get down there next episode. But yeah, we definitely found that there was some major differences in how the river was shaped when we flew in that region a few years ago. Yeah, no, we weren't. Yeah, Mad Noobs is Buffalo. Yeah, we weren't replicating Buffalo Air. The outfit in Flying Wild Alaska that was featured, that was kind of the center, the main protagonists of Flying Wild Alaska was called Era Alaska, and they flew much more like bush style missions. They flew a lot of hunting trips and little village restocking missions and stuff like that. I think Era Alaska these days operates mostly helicopters, but back in that day, they were doing much more, and they were doing some larger cargoes, caravans, and even DC-3s and DC-6s or those sorts of things. But mostly they were flying, bush style tail draggers, Cubs and such, and little high-wing Cessnas and such. Yeah, it was a neat show. Neat show, neat family, lots of good characters. I think the father figure did later die in a plane crash, unfortunately. Well after the show's run ended, but I think he did pass away in a crash just a few years ago. Stanley 44, hey, haven't talked to you in a bit. Good Fixin's also stopping in. Alright, so we should be maybe about 5 minutes away, tiny bit more perhaps. Let's kind of corroborate. Are we at the end of that lemon-shaped island? Yeah, I would say that is Edith Island that we are just over top the western tip of. Oh, now I gotta go find it again. Yeah, I think that's where we are right there. Tells me that we're 30 miles away, straight line, but probably 35-ish. Yeah, I've been great, man. Hope that you can say the same. Since we're coming up on our destination, yeah, we're going to stay on 22.8. Did I ever switch over to 22.8? I did. Okay, good. And just a little bit of cheating. Is there anybody here that I need to coordinate with? No. Okay. All right. Well, good. I didn't zoom in enough to see where exactly I am, which is good. But I do think I'm pretty confident that we're where I think we are. I think I saw Ham Island coming up ahead. Yeah, I think that's probably Ham Island right there. Looks like we do need to kind of be careful about cloud bases. Am I 500 feet below these? Likely not. So we're cheating. We're cheating VFR if that's the case. And you know, again, I always kind of feel like a little bit of a chump On the stream, we push ahead not because we're trying to model good behavior, but because the alternative is that you watch me ground myself and we sit here and watch clouds for the rest of the night, which is a little boring. So you'll see me push marginal weather conditions on stream from time to time, not because I'm doing things super realistically in those moments, but just because I'm trying to entertain and have fun. Yeah, Jim Tweedo. Okay, 2023, so 3 years ago. Hunting and fishing guide. Yeah, right. Kids, don't try this at home, right, Ori? Anyway, what I was about to say, well, a couple things. First of all, let's get our arrival plan. Right click, open a new tab. We got a 3 and a 2-1 according to the RNAV approaches there. Now, we don't have any kind of RNAV capability in this aircraft, so we'll be flying this visually, but it's a 3 and 2-1. It's 4,000 foot gravel. It does downslope to the middle. Okay, that's good to know. Even if we land in the middle and, you know, even if we hold it off until the upslope side, that's fine. Of course, we'll get dinged for not landing within the touchdown zone, but depending on how bad the downslope is, it might make more sense, instead of trying to stall the plane out onto a runway which is sloping away from us, it might make sense to you know, to wait and try to set it down when it levels or upslopes. We'll see how bad a slope situation it is there. Yeah, 4,000 foot gravel, hopefully a little bit more evenly rendered gravel surface than the last one. We'll see. But it's a 3 and a 2-1. That's the important thing. I'm going to go ahead and set the arrow to a runway 3 orientation, and we will plan to enter a left downwind when we get there. However, we'll recheck the weather situation to see if maybe a 2-1 might make more sense. Yeah, so if we follow the river, a left downwind to runway 3 does seem to make sense. Wind is reported as variable at 3, so I think we'll just go ahead and do that. Left downwind to runway 3 over the water. Field elevation there, 658, and we're at 1,600 now, so I'm going to want to trim up, stay at 1,700, and again, are we 500 below the cloud bases? Possibly. Possibly. A little scud run. How are we fuel-wise? We still got plenty. I put 25 in each side. We're down to 15 in each side. But we've probably covered more than half of the distance that we're going to cover for the night, so I think we'll be okay. $22 on the manifold. It crept up a little bit because we lost altitude. Okay, so 22, 14 gallons an hour, all good. We burned at 14 gallons an hour, and we got 15 in each tank. Then we got 2 hours of fuel remaining, so we're fine. So I would say this little U-shaped tributary there, that is Ham Island. So we're right there. So I would say we're 17 miles out. We can see this next island up ahead. Right there. And then a little bit of an offshoot to the right. Right there. And then the field will be down here to our left. So the offshoot comes back and rejoins, and then the field is on our left. What do we say? Field elevation 658, so 700 round figures, and so we're going to be at 1700 for our pattern elevation. We're at 18 now, so we're good. We're right kind of where we want to be. And now, yeah, maybe we're 500 below. That's fine. And as we come up to the beginning of this next island here, we're 11 east of the airfield, so we'll start making traffic calls. And again, just as a refresher, the en route advisory frequency is 22.8, but in this case, the advisory frequency at the Ruby Airport is also 122.8. So we'll just go ahead and stay on that 122.8, which we're already transmitting and receiving on. We're also monitoring 121.5 on our second comm radio. The other thing that I have not done in a while, and I'm going to do now, we have not calibrated our directional gyro back to the what we call the whiskey compass, or the wet compass, or the actual magnetic compass. So let's make sure that we're steering in exactly a 240 here, and then let's compare and see how that differs from. Man, it's a 9 degrees off, so we really have not done this in a while. So it's more like that. Yep, okay. So yeah, this is one of those planes where the directional gyro just ever so gradually processes out of alignment, and you do, especially when you're trying to line up things like runway directions, you kind of want to make sure that you've taken the time to compare the two. And now the catch is, in the sim, the wet compass is a lot more stable than it is in reality. Now this compass does exhibit characteristics like when you're in a turn, it runs ahead. If you're in a turn in the other way, it runs behind. You really do need to make sure that you're in perfectly level flight. It will bob around a little bit if we hit any kind of turbulence. However, in general, I do think the sim compass is still a little bit too stable versus a magnetic wet compass in the real world. So sometimes you kind of just have to watch it swing back and forth over time and be like, all right, well, what's the average? I guess it's about that, and then go by that. It's not quite as precise an instrument as sim renders it to be. But it's fine. The general tenet still holds, which is that you do have to adjust this to match this as best as you can. Yeah, very much. I mean, obviously, so much of aviation is borrowed from maritime already. That, yeah, it's very, very similar. Aviation essentially evolved from maritime, so you can think of it in those terms. That's why we use terms like nautical miles, right? Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Vic is about 6 miles north and east. At 2000, we're going to enter a left downwind, runway 3, full stop. Ruby. Okay, so as the island ends and then the river bends to the right, the airfield's going to be down on our left. So as the river bends to the right, we should be kind of, and a wider tip to the right here, which I think is that. Yep. So I do think right in here somewhere, we should be kind of pointed right at it, and I don't see it. It definitely should be. Right in there somewhere, and I am not seeing it at all. I'm very highly confident that I am where I think I am. Matter of fact, we can even see... Ooh. Is it before? Because we can see the stream that breaks off. Is that this or is that this? Yeah, this stream breaks off. The airfield's before that stream. So maybe... Oh, is it right here? Yeah, there it is. Ooh, that's going to be a tricky one to get in and out of. Look at the terrain next to that. Alright. Yeah. Going nowhere fast, Kenny Monster asks? No, just not sure where we're going, but we found it. Well hidden, as all airports should be, says Roy. Yeah, you guys can start putting some predictions into the chat as far as the vertical descent rate. At the moment the wheel starts runway surface, no bot command necessary, just a number into the chat, positive or negative. We'll know the immediate descent rate either way, and the closest predictor gets an automatic entry into our monthly landing rate raffle, next drawing at the very end of the month, August 31st. Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's on a left downwind midfield now for runway 3 full stop, Ruby. Alright. RPM's coming up. Power coming down. Gear coming out. Fuel pump coming on. 24 achieved. And as soon as we're in that white arc, we'll go ahead and throw the first notch of flaps in. Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's left downwind to left base, runway 3, full stop, Ruby. Okay, I'm keeping extra altitude because I'm really not certain about how this terrain's going to work with the approach there. So we're looking at this little ridge here. So we're probably going to land long intentionally because I'm hedging for the terrain, but I also know we've got a 4,000 foot runway, which is about 3 times as long as we really need in this aircraft. So okay, second notch of flaps. Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's left base, and turning now final for runway 3 full stop, Ruby. Okay, nice broad
It's not
turn.
about Great
final.
Britain, it's about Great Butter.
Sky Command is here. It just says, just so you know, I don't approve of you missing expos. Yeah, fair enough. I will be in Vegas for the next one, man. No, I'm gonna be there, Sky Command. I had to miss the one in St. Paul for a work conflict, but I am going to be at the one in Vegas for sure. You will get your hug, don't worry, man. I don't like beefing with you, he says. Well, yeah, no beef necessary unless you're talking about the edible kind, in which case there'll be plenty. It does look like our nose is just a little bit over to the right, so let's put some left rudder in. We're 100 miles an hour, so we got plenty of extra speed here. Let's go ahead and let that bleed off now that we've got the runway made for sure. Got to clear some treetops here too, holy cow. Might bring some pine needles in with us. A little bit of power coming back in just to slow the descent just a touch. Okay, and we got the rising runway here, so we can go ahead and just flare it out, let it settle. Perfect. Very happy with that. Alright, I don't know where the parking pad is. We might just invent one. A little bit of a clearing ahead on our left. We'll just go with that. That may or may not be the actual one. Oh, yeah, looks like it might be. Cool. Well, all the more reason. Ruby traffic. Comanche 514 Delta Victor's clear. Runway 3. Full stop, Ruby. Full stop, duh. Strobe off. Landing lights off. Pitot heat. Fuel pump off. And we can go ahead and stow the flaps. And yeah, this one a lot more smooth. I mean, it wasn't smooth. It's still an Alaskan gravel strip, but much more smooth than that last one. You're wanting me to park over there? Okay, I'll do that. Oh, and let's go ahead and clean the mix out right to the point where it starts to drop as well. Okay, parking brakes on. And we are good. Okay. Cool. We got everything cleaned up? Yeah, we're good. Okay. Alright, welcome to Ruby, guys. Let's look and see how it looks on VATSIM radar. So here's where we first took off, and of course did that full left pattern. We basically left on a left base out of that pattern. And then we flew, a nice wide pattern here to Tanana. This was where we bounced and bounced and bounced. Took off right downwind and came down to Ruby. Yeah, there we are. Once we saw it, nice kind of a wide left pattern there to Ruby. Okay, so far so good. 2 stops in the books. And let's take a peek and see what our stats were all about. Well, again, it scored us very, very high, 95 out of 100, and did better on crab angle and center line this time. Overpitched it said, but of course we had the runway was sloping on us, so I think I can kind of forgive myself that. I did probably overpitch and finesse at the end there, and the stat that registered was 89 feet per minute at the moment the wheels touch runway surface. But again, with the based on the sloping of the runway, I will forgive myself that. These are all very good marks, and 89 is the number that you want to look at. Let's take a look at the telemetry. Tiny little bit of a tailwind. It's fully over to the bar, but it's 0 knots. So basically wind calm here. And yeah, so the wind was not a factor. And it was really more of the runway slope that caused us to land as long as we did. But we were very good in terms of alignment with center line, and crab angle was controlled for much better this time. Again, the fact that there was no crosswind kind of helped me out with that. And you see this this variation here in our glide path. That's because this chart is in terms of feet above ground level. So in areas where the terrain varies very wildly on during your pattern, this ends up looking kind of funky, but it's not really representative of the glide path that we took in terms of mean sea level. So just to note that. Overall, I think it was good. 95 out of 100 is what the app scored it as, but 89 feet per minute is the number that you all were trying to predict. Which means We had 40, we had 75, we had 33, we had 48, we had 85. Bed Dave in there with pretty close one. And then, of course, ELW comes in with the 88, which is even closer, right? What was it? 89, yeah. So ELW 1 away with that 88. 43 coming in. Coming in with that final guess there. So, yeah, 88 is going to be the winner. ELW picks up the entry, and again, we'll take a ticket out of the fishbowl here at the end of the month. And Kenny Monster's heading in for the evening. All right, very good, man. Have a good one. Good to hang with you as always. And where are we? PARY on 8/19. Okay, well, we're halfway done in terms of the number of stops. However, we're more than halfway done in terms of distance, and we're just now passing the midway mark of the stream. It's 4 hours tends to be the average length. I'm going to go ahead and grab a quick break out of the cockpit, do a little liquid recycling. Of course, the outflow portion is a little overdue, as I mentioned to you a little bit ago. But then the beverage itself does need a refresher as well, so we'll take care of that as well, and then we'll be right back with you. The next destination is what now? Let's get that planned and ready to go. We're going to depart here from Ruby, and we're going to head to Galena Paga, P-A-G-A, Edward G. Pitka Senior Airport in Galena, Alaska. So what's that in terms of approximate mileage? We do something like that, that's 44 miles. So yeah, that's a much more manageable leg. And we will get to that. 10 statute miles broken in 23. Overcast at 26. Okay, if that holds up, we can work with it, guys. And this is another one. Now, it doesn't say, in this case, it doesn't specify a right-hand pattern to this runway, although you would think coming over the water to this runway, you would think that we would. This is a 6,000 foot, and based on the icon here, I'm going to say probably paved. Let's, we got an airport diagram and everything there. Let's right-click and open a new tab just for the information. Asphalt in fair condition. Okay, so we have an actual paved runway to land on, friends. That'll be a nice change of pace. With taxiways off to the left-hand side. Oh, we got we got a paved one and a gravel one. All right, very good. So we'll get to that when we get back, and after a liquid recycling break, we will march on. Okay, well, we'll get to that in just a moment. Thanks for transient and tenant parking, indeed. All right, friends. Well, we'll get to it in just a few, so sit tight, and lots more flying left to do on the Slant Alpha channel as we continue on our river run down the Yukon River in just a bit. Sit tight. Alright, friends, we're back with you, and apologize for the slightly long run of the intermission there, but thanks for your patience, and we are getting ready to press on down the river, the Yukon River, as we continue this series within the stream that we call River Run, our 5th season of it. And we chose the Yukon River. We take a river within the U.S. and we start at its origin. We take it all the way to its mouth. So we take it source to mouth, break it up into anywhere from 7 to, I think, 19 episodes was the season that we did down the Mississippi River. We take it in chunks and we stop at every charted airfield along the way that we find, whether it's public or private, whether it's grass, gravel, dirt, or paved. And so that's where we are now. We're all at Ruby Airfield in Alaska, and we are continuing westbound along the Yukon River with our next destination being Galena. Ori says, I just want to let you know, I had good intentions of getting into bed by 8:30. My mom says you're a bad influence on me. Well, my mom says I'm a good boy. So, yeah, no, don't press yourself, man. You can always watch it. You can always watch the rest of it tomorrow. All right, well, anyway. Anyway, we're continuing with our slant artwork adventure as well, where we are, we're collaboratively generating the image that will become the YouTube thumbnail when we upload this to YouTube later. We started with just me overlooking the town of Ruby, and we then added a big old American flag there to represent Rampart, Alaska, as the song Rampart is mentioned in the Star Spangled Banner. Well, while we were in intermission, decided to add somebody holding up pieces of landing gear. And so there we are. We got broken pieces of landing gear. I'm not so sure what's going on with that guy's hand, per se. But we got broken pieces of landing gear that we are now holding up as trophies of our arrival there at Ruby. But anyway, if you want to get in on our slant artwork adventure, you can cash in 500 of the Twitch channel points, aka the alphabets points there at the bottom of the chat panel, and then you can suggest an addition or modification to our slant artwork adventure. We try to keep it somewhat relevant to what's going on the live stream that day. But feel free to get silly with it if you'd like to, like we just did. But try to keep it somewhat relevant to what's happening on that day's stream. Alright, well, we've got some weather, but we think the cloud bases are going to cooperate. Might scud run it a little bit. We might not be fully VFR compliant the entire way down, but we'll see how it goes as we are getting ready to depart from Ruby and head down to Galena. Ori wants to get in on that slant artwork adventure thing, so go ahead and let me know, Ori, what you'd like to do to add to or modify that image while we get ready for our next leg here. So it looks like we're parked at, say, 085, and yeah, we do need to rock that back about 5 degrees now to make that match up. And the field elevation is just under 700, 658, so it does look like we need to lower the altimeter reading there to where we're pointing right at basically 660. Okay, so that seems closer. And yeah, I think we're good. We can go ahead and set flaps for departure. We can set trim for departure. What you got, Ori? What you got? Okay, and then we are we're on 122.8 at Ruby. We'll be on 123.0 at Galena. So, and the advisory frequency is to 22.8 at the airport. Technically speaking, anytime you're in an unstaffed situation en route, you're not in the immediate vicinity of an airport, you should be on 122.8 also, but that is really only relevant if there's other air traffic in the area that you need to coordinate with, which so far there hasn't been any. There's been folks flying over at high altitude, but nothing that we need to worry about down here just hovering over the river. But then in the vicinity of the airport, we're going to be transmitting on 123.0, and we'll do that just to be good neighbors. We'll do that whether or not we've got traffic known to be in the area, just in case. A mystic flood of the river. Okay. Okay, I will work on that. And we will get back to that. And let's get underway on our next leg, too, and then I will make that addition for you. All right, let's go ahead. We got the directional gyro adjusted. We got the altimeter adjusted. We're ready to go. Obviously, we're going to not try to hurt the ground crew here. Take a little bit of a liberty with that. Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is going to be back taxiing runway 3 for a VFR westbound departure. Ruby. Okay, so we're going to back taxi on the runway. However, we're going to go ahead and enter the runway, which means we'll put our strobe lights on. And we'll go ahead and get pitot and fuel pump on as well, just to have it done, so I don't forget. And then even though we made an announcement, we didn't hear anybody calling that they were on their way in. Let's just make sure we do a visual check as well, just in case maybe somebody's not on the right frequency. Okay, but we're taxiing in the back taxiing in the 2-1 direction so that we can depart in the 3 direction, and then we are going to make a left downwind departure to rejoin the river. Now, we don't need to go, I don't think, necessarily all the way back to the beginning of the runway, but we'll go, a good portion of the way. The more runway you got ahead of you, the more safety margin you have in case something goes wrong. Now, speaking of safety margins, I didn't do a run-up before I entered the runway. It wouldn't be a bad idea, since we did have the engine idling at low RPM for that length of time. We may have picked up some carbon deposits on the plug tips, which might make the engine run rough at higher power. I think we will forego the run-up, but if we put the engine to takeoff power and we experience any sputters or stutters, we will abort, and we'll go back to that pad and we'll troubleshoot. But for right now, we're going to do the dumb thing and go on without the run-up. Alright, let's go ahead and get the landing lights on. Let's get spun around. And let's depart. Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is departing on runway 3. It'll be the left downwind departure of VFR to the west. Ruby. Okay, we get lined up. Takeoff power set. Oh, mix full rich as well. Takeoff power set right up to the red line. Again, it's kind of bumpy and rough, so let's just get up into ground effect. We'll let the plane accelerate in ground effect. Won't really have too much in the way of severe obstacle clearance that we need to do, so go ahead and pitch up at 105 there. Gear can come up because we don't need to return to the pavement. And we're clear of the runway. We got plenty of airspeed. We can go ahead and start our crosswind turn. Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's clear, runway 3, starting a left crosswind. Ruby. Alright, I've kind of done more like a 45-degree left crosswind, but then we'll go ahead and turn downwind and join the river. And Ruby traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor, now turning a left crosswind to left downwind. We'll be joining the river westbound at 2,000 feet, leaving the area to the west. Ruby. Alright, we can pull the RPMs off the red line, but we're pretty much leveling out at 2,000 now, so we can just go ahead and slide it all the way down to 22 and 22. Level it out. Fuel pump can come off as well. Let's keep adding down trim. RPMs to 22, manifold to 22. Keep trimming down, keep trimming down, keep trimming down. Just keep trimming, trimming. Let's pull the mix out just a little bit till we're looking at a fuel flow of right around 14 gallons an hour. Okay, 22, 22, 14. We're still picking up altitude. Did we ever get the flaps up? I don't know if we did. Yeah, that's part of the problem. Sorry, that cough kind of snuck up on me. I would have muted the mic otherwise. But yeah, alright, now that we got the flaps in, got 2200 on the RPMs, 22 on the manifold, and speed's starting to come up now, especially now that we got the extra drag in. But yeah, we're 500 extra feet almost now, so let's keep trimming down. Let's get that excess altitude off, especially because we want to try to stay VFR legal and stay 500 feet below those cloud bases. Of course, if we're at 2400 and we're at least 100 feet below the bases and we're going to drop 400 feet, then I guess that means we're legal. Once we get to 2000, that is. But yeah, let me get it trimmed out there. And then I'll see what I can do about your artwork request there, Rory. Okay, working on that. Altitude coming back into about 2000. Weird. Okay, alright. So just a touch high is indeed how the river's been depicted there, Ori. So there's not... Yeah, you can see that there is some minor flooding occurring in the settlement with the water running a touch high. So there you go. Oh yeah, now I gotta trim back up. Yeah, it's gonna oscillate its way right to 2000. Now I gotta trim it back up now a little bit. Not what you were going for? Okay, well. We did our best. Alright, yeah, I still gotta get back up to 2000 here. And the manifold pressure's crept up, but it's because I'm below altitude. The lower you go, the manifold pressure gets a little higher because the air's a little denser. And that's why as you climb, the manifold pressure decays and you have to kind of nudge the throttle forward as you climb. So the opposite happens when you descend. But I'm not going to adjust it by moving the handle. I'm going to adjust it by getting back up to the altitude I was at when I calibrated it in the first place. Oh, and what time did we take off at? I guess 40 past the hour, more or less. And what did we say this one was? 44 miles. And I think we said 18 minutes, right? So, once again, kind of right near the top of the hour. Yeah, definitely have some overcast to contend with, and we knew kind of coming in. You know, this is showing overcast at 1900. This is scattered at 2800, so it's a little bit better further south. Back here now showing broken at 4100, so it's improving behind us. But it's okay. We're good. If we can stay at 2000, then we can be VFR legal or close to it, then I'm happy. Alright, there we are, coming back into 2000, and if I put a gentle bank in, that'll, of course, take away some of our upward lift. But then when we roll out of that gentle bank, we'll trim down and see if we can keep it right on that 2000. I put in another minor tweak request in. That worked. I put another minor request in to try and get the dude's hands fixed. They're looking much better now. He's looking a little redder in the face, but at least his hands actually look like hands. Alright, now we had, I think behind us, we had the smaller, and we had that little tributary off to the south. We had that smaller island passed behind us, and then we do have a little bit of a tributary coming in off the south. But I think this diamond-shaped one called Fish Island, I think that's the one we're looking at up ahead here. Yeah, and it kind of tapers off to the right, and then there's a smaller island ahead to the left. And again, this tapers off to the right, and there's a smaller island ahead to the left, so I think that is indeed what we're looking at. Up ahead of that, it looks like the river takes a sharp right turn. And indeed, I think that is what we're looking at, so I would say very high probability that this is Fish Island that we're coming up on, and I guess we're coming up on the little ancillary islands just prior. So we're 9 miles from there, 6 miles from there, 5 miles from there. So 9, 6 is 15, so we're 20 miles out. Upshot 2020 is here. Upshot, how are you? Good to see you. And we're drifting up a little bit. So when we get to the bend, I think we'll just call ourselves 10 miles south and east, round figures. We got no air traffic in the region that we need to coordinate with, so I'm going to go ahead and not worry about 122.8 anymore. We're going to go ahead and switch over to the advisory frequency for Galena. Now this does not say we've got a. What do we say we had? An 8 and 2.6. So we'll set the arrows to match that. Oh, just started your first day of classes today. All right, good. Good to hear you back at it. This does not say anything about a right-hand traffic to 2.6, so I think we'll come up and hug the right side of the bank, and we'll stay over the land, and we'll make a left traffic pattern to 2.6. Let's just double check that. Right click, open a new tab. 8 and 2.6, 2.6 left traffic pattern. Okay, yeah. A lot of times, and we were talking about this earlier. A lot of times when you have these airports where there's an approach over the water, it's not universal, but it's common. It's very common that the intended traffic direction is over the water. So I'm surprised not to see RP26 right here, where you would make that that downwind and base and final over the water. And a lot of times that's for noise abatement, so that you're not flying right over people's houses over here. Surprised not to see that here, but we'll abide by it. If they want a left pattern to 2.6, that's what we'll do. Oh, Upshot says, I did not get Seth as my instructor for the fall. See how I like the new guy. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't been paying rapt attention to the stream over the past few weeks, Upshot 2020 a few weeks ago had a chance to get some instrument time in, and flew his school's plane with his instructor up from where his base is at, his school's base is at, up to visit. And was supposed to initially have been a lunch visit, and then it got delayed a little bit, and then it got delayed a little bit more. And I had plans with my wife and her best friend, who was down from Baltimore, and then her best friend's husband with her. So wound up being 4 of us out, and then Upshot and his instructor wound up joining us for dinner, which was kind of cool. Actually, I'm understating that. It was very cool. So we got to meet his instructor, Seth. Both of them very fun people. Had a nice time hanging out with them. And yeah, so he was yeah, both of y'all were a lot of fun to hang out with and talk to, and he was a nice guy, cool guy. So yeah, it's bad news that you got to get acclimated to someone new, but fingers crossed that you get somebody that you like it, at least nearly as much. Right, yeah, so that was what part of the delay was, right. Yeah, Upshot says we didn't realize that in order to get credit for what he needed to get credit for, the leg that he had to do had to be 250 nautical miles, and our airport locally here wasn't quite long enough, so he wound up flying up the coast a little bit, landing I don't think he even landed. I think you guys did a touch and go there, right, and then turned right around and came back down. But anyway, yeah, so lunch plans turned into dinner plans, but that was kind of cool. You got to not only hang out with me, but hang out with the missus and our friends down from Baltimore. Good food and good company. And we were talking earlier, Upshot. Who was it? ELW, Ori Darkwind, Iowa Scotsman. We're all saying more of a slam and go. Well, in our slant artwork adventure, we got our maintenance man holding broken pieces of landing gear as well. So if you want to take your hints as to how that first landing on our stream went. But at any rate, yeah, but they, oh, that's, yeah, I lost my train of thought. So they were saying earlier, like, I forget what we were talking about, but they couldn't believe, like, when I turned the stream off, I use words that I don't use when I'm on stream. And they're like, oh, I can't picture Rob with a sailor mouth. And I'm like, well, picture it or don't picture it. Oh, well, by the way, we're at our airport. I just noticed a green flashing light here. I thought I had one more bend to go. I cut the corner here and realized we're just about flying over top of our airport. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is overflying the field south to north, and then we're going to join a midfield left downwind to runway 26 full stop Galena. Fortunately, we're at 2,000, so we're not really interfering with traffic pattern. Yeah, so that's what they were saying. They were saying I didn't come across as somebody who would use spicy language, and I'm saying, well, there are a few people on the stream who have had the pleasure of meeting with me in person, and they know that that's not necessarily true. You guys can start putting some predictions into the chat as far as the vertical descent rate at the moment the wheels touch runway surface. No bot command necessary for that, just a number into the chat, positive or negative. We'll know that you need a descent rate either way. And the closest predictor, we'll get an automatic entry into our monthly landing rate raffle, which will be drawn on August the 31st. Now I'm doing a pretty bad thing here. I'm descending into the pattern. The field elevation 154, so even if we call that 200, the field elevation, or pattern elevation 1200, I'm descending into the pattern. And especially as a low-wing aircraft, that is a great way to descend on top of somebody. However, it also looks like the terrain up to the north of the airport is a little bit higher. So, I don't know, like, I kind of feel like I want an extra few hundred feet in the pattern here. But that's alright. Yeah, we know there's nobody else around on VATSIM, so we'll take the liberty of a sloppy entry into the pattern here. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. At this point, we'll just go with it. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is now on an extended left downwind, and just about to turn left base for runway 26 full stop. Or correction, runway 8 full stop, Galena. Okay, we're spinning the props up, get slowed down, we're below 150, gear can come out, mix is full, fuel pump is on, RPM set 24, we're backing off. Yeah, I know, they're looking up the number that I'm going to need to call. Okay, we're in the white arc, first notch of flaps. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's left downwind to left base now for the runway 8 full stop, Galena. Keep those predictions coming, guys. Sorry for the late call. Okay, flaps, I'm sorry, yeah, prop full, mix full. Second notch of flaps coming in. And we're on our base, okay. So fairly sloppy entry into the pattern, but we got it now. One more notch of flaps to go as we turn base to final. You know, I don't always model great behavior, but at least I try to point it out so that y'all know I'm not modeling great behavior. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor, left base to final, runway 8, full stop, Galena. Yeah, Ori Darkwing says, nice recovery. I mean, the bad thing it would be, in the real world there, if somebody was already on that downwind and I was descending into the midfield downwind and I wasn't scanning very, very carefully ahead and to my right, I might not have seen that I was about to cut them off or collide with them. And especially if they were low and to my right, because I was above pattern altitude, you know, that increases the chance that I would not have seen them. So it was a sloppy entry, but on VATSIM we can get away with it, and of course in the real world we wouldn't have done that way. I got the fuel pump on. Got a pretty good crab angle we'll correct for here. I gotta get it back on center line and then correct the crab angle, I guess. Over controlling the heck out of the pitch, but we did it okay. Man, we're still flying the plane. Let's get that speed off so I can actually let go. The wind was not happy with me this time. The wind was angry that day, my friends. We made it. We didn't break anything. We didn't break anything nearly as badly as we did on that first landing. Mozzie, what are you growling at? Mozzie was so proud of himself earlier, he's pounced on a little moth. And he was playing with it like a cat. And I was happy, you know, like I want him to, you know, to help us patrol the household for infestations, but he was just playing with it like a cat. Just pouncing on it. 2 paws down. I took care of it for him, but alright, strobes off, landing lights off, pitot and fuel pump off. And flaps are stowed. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's clear, runway 8 clear. Yeah, so not a smooth application of pitch on flare there, but we made it. Okay, RPM's back to 1,000. Oh, so we got a paved runway but a gravel parking area. Upshot says, it was a blast flying up there, really grateful we could pull it off. Got a good plane wash out of it too. Yeah, they hit some pretty good downpours on the way back, and they showed me video, very scary video. I mean, I think, you know, we've marveled at some of the scary conditions we've flown in on the sim. He and Seth were in those conditions in the real world, and man, it just whoosh. And I was grateful that I do this in the comfort of my spare room. Did we get the lights all off? Yeah, we did. Okay, parking brakes on as well. All right, yeah, sorry to keep you up the extra time, but hope you get some good rest. How did it end up looking? Yeah, so good job following the river. This is our last stop here. Good job following the river, and yes, I definitely kind of cut across the flats once I saw that, you know, the bend went where I went. I wasn't paying attention to realize that I was pointed right at midfield. So once I saw the airport, I was like, okay, well, let's get ourselves in a midfield downwind. It looks like I turned wide. I did not turn a true downwind. So again, not the cleanest of entry, but then the base looked good down. You know, the turn from base to final looked nice in the line. They didn't overshoot it. Turned right out on the final. So yeah, there's some things about that were pretty sloppy, but there's some things about that weren't so bad. What about the telemetry and the analysis, the stats? Well, scored me another 95 out of 100. A crab and center line, not great, but we knew we had a pretty significant crosswind on that, so I'm not going to begrudge myself that. Let's do a replay of it. 41 was the number that registered in terms of feet per minute, so that's the number you all were trying to predict. Yeah, look at that. You know, the nose was way over to the right, and we were pushing way over to the left, and I had to kind of exaggerate the nose over to the right to get back on the center line. And then once we did that, you know, this was where I kind of kicked the rudder in to get that crab angle reduced. And you can see that I did, to some extent, get the nose pointed down the runway, but then we were crabbing slightly to the left. So even though the nose pointed down, right down the center line, we were tracking a little bit left there. And so that's why it dinged me for crab angle. And of course, once the plane's wheels grabbed the pavement, then you could, the fact that we were rotated slightly left is what caused us to veer off to the left upon touchdown. But not too bad, and yeah, you can see I was definitely over-controlling pitch there. So not a very smooth application of pitch on the way in, but other than that, I think that under the circumstances, not too bad. Look at the crosswind here, right? 7 knots, and 6, 7, 8, 7, 6 again, and then back up to 7 and 8 again, and 9 knots there. So yeah, we had a pretty substantial right to left crosswind, and I think that under the circumstances I controlled pretty well for it. Not perfectly so, but adequately so, at least by my own standards, and it graded me a 95 out of 100 on it anyway, so we'll take that. 41 was the number that you all were looking for. And 43 was Iowa Scotsman's opening bid. That's going to be a tough one to beat. 2 away. 24-55. Iowa Scotsman is indeed the winner. Yeah, that's right. Unicom towers are free for all anyway. Upshot says, indeed, indeed. But there are things that you can do to make things less safe, and there are things that you can do to make it more safe, and you well know this. But, of course, in the sim, you know, we can take some liberties. We can do some intentionally lazy things. Because we can't actually hurt anybody by doing so. Let's see. Where are we? PAGA. On 8/19. Let's say PAGA, pretend Alaska's great again. But we don't have to pretend. Because it is great. Always. PAGA. Purport Alaska's great always. I don't know. I don't know. Upshot 2020, let's get that, let's get that artwork request that you put in a bit ago. We're working on that. We'll take a peek at it in just a moment. And in the meantime, we've got, what is it, one more leg we're going to do tonight? I think it's just one. Yeah, we're going to right-click and put that into plan there. And then last one. It's pretty close by. Just 22 miles. And let's right-click, open a new tab. Let's just make sure we're planning right away for this one, because so it's a 7 and 2.5 and 4,000 foot gravel. So again, kind of not really understanding what the surface is going to be when we get there. Let's depart off of at 2004. So it almost feels like we should take off to the west now. 26. And then, oh, what was this again? A 2.4? Yeah, I forgot that quick. Goldfish brain strikes again. 2.5. So a 2.4 here, and then a 2.5 here. And it's 22.9, so 23.0, 22.9. There's really not a lot of space in between that we're even going to worry about an en route advisory frequency. I think we'll just depart transmitting on 23.0, and then halfway there we'll start transmitting on 22.9, talking about our setup. And I think, you know, really a left-hand pattern to runway 25 would be appropriate, but let's just kind of come in from the south and just join a left base. You know, instead of doing like a whole big loop around the airport, let's just join, you know, not necessarily a straight in, but let's join off of here and and just enter a left base. We'll be able to see if there's any traffic coming in the opposite direction there in the pattern already, and we'll be able to adjust to that. Again, not really typically a standard entry. You know, safer thing to do would be, you know, overfly and join a pattern from the far side, but you know, we'll do that. We'll take a little bit of a liberty because it's VATSIM. The asterisk L, Mad Noob, it has something to do with the type of lighting that is available at these fields. Since I do almost all day flying, I don't really know exactly, or have a, you know, real specific answer for you, but it has to do with the lighting at the airfield. There you go, Matt. Upshot wanted to show a Piper Archer ditched in the river there, so there we've now added that. Where it's pilot controlled, yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily know that that's what that stands for. It could be though. And of course, we wouldn't have that. Wouldn't have that available here in the sim necessarily. Some sims may simulate it. Yeah. There's lots of different ways we could do it, Upshot, but it would require taking the turn wider, staying a little bit more clear of the pattern airspace until we were really to enter really in a position to enter it properly. But yeah, I think we'll just enter on that straight up left base. We'll be fine there. Okay, so that is pilot controlled lights. So there you go. And you know, you check the NOTAMs or whatever. It's normally just like a double click on the intercom frequency or something like that. So I don't mess with that kind of stuff in the sim, since we do most of our flying here in the daylight hours. All right, let's take a moment to calibrate our directional gyro here. We're parked at about a 162. Yeah, we got to rock that back a good amount there. And then field elevation here is 154, and we're reading closer to 200, so I'm just going to assume, you know, maybe we'll knock the altimeter down just a couple notches. Oh, 5 clicks for medium, 3 for low, 7 for high. Nice. Very cool. Okay, so we're departing runway, and we said we're going to flip it around. We're going to depart 26. And then so we'll go straight out to the west. But really kind of almost a right crosswind departure to follow the river. And then westbound. Okay, so let's set flaps. Let's set trim. Trim's, yeah, pretty much set already. And we got directional gyro. We got altimeter. I think we're good. Fuel's just under 15 per side, but we're good. We got one more leg to go. And 14 gallons an hour is what we burn, so that means we got an hour of fuel and an hour of reserve. So I think we're in plenty good shape fuel-wise here. Parking brake is off. We're going to take off to the right, which means we're going to back taxi to the left. Oh, I'm turning out the wrong way then. Okay. And we have a parallel taxiway here, so we don't have to, or is this the runway? No, that's the taxiway. You know how I can tell? Because the lights are blue. Okay. White dotted line threw me off there for a second, but that's just entry from the ramp area. It is, Melvin, yes. It is suspiciously taxiway-y.
Set of 30-weight ball bearings. What the hell you need ball
bearings? It looks suspiciously runway-y for a moment, but I got my suspicions settled. Alright, so I think this will be plenty. We don't need to go back taxi the rest of the way. We got a pad there. We could pull off and do a run-up, but I think we're fine. We'll forego that. Again, if we have any engine issues on upon setting takeoff tap power, we will abort and adjudicate as necessary. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's departing runway 26 from intersection Alpha. We're going to go right crosswind to follow the river northbound. Galena. Okay, we've not heard anyone make a call. We've not seen anybody inbound. Strobes on, landing lights on, pitot and fuel pump on. Flaps and trim were set. Anything is a runway if you're Harrison Ford, right? Dun da da da, dun da da. As long as you hum that, you can land wherever you want. Alright, lined up, takeoff power set. Setting. Okay, we got some right rudder in. We got a good amount of right rudder in to hold it, so we'll put some left aileron in as well. Okay, up and away. Pitch to accelerate to 105. Okay, we're no longer in need of returning to the pavement, so gear can come in. Flaps can come in. We'll reduce the RPMs to 24. Reduce the manifold to 24. Pitch up, keep the 105 going. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's clear, runway 26, and we are on the right crosswind turnout to follow the river northbound, Galena. Alright, well, we're going to level out at 2,000. Fuel pump can come off. Go ahead and start bringing power down to 22 and 22. And And leading the mix out to 14 gallons an hour fuel flow. Still adding down trim. 22, 22. Galena traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's now 2 miles north and west at 2000. We are turning to follow the river westbound, leaving the area. Last call, Galena. Okay, keep the down trim coming. What do we say the runway orientation was? 25, I think, at Koyukuk. Is that where we're going? Koyukuk. Alright, we're still adding some down trim. RPMs could nudge down right to about 222 RPM. The manifolds rather looking good. Fuel flow is a little too lean. Let's get it right back up to 14 an hour. And again, there are a variety of different book settings in terms of what power levels you want to use. Whether you want a faster cruise or a more fuel efficient cruise. The cruise settings change depending on atmospheric conditions. I just use 22 and 14 as round figures, round to all-purpose figures. Okay, so we are finishing out this turn here. We are probably at that tip of that island there. We got a right, a left, and a right with another little island in it. Yeah, exactly. Upshot says, yeah, you can get into the thicket with those constant speed prompts and settings. Yeah, exactly. And you really, you know, as an owner, somebody who wants to maximize the longevity of the engine and maximize fuel efficiency because of fuel prices, you know, obviously you want to take very good care of your engine and treat it as gently as possible for as long as possible so that it gets you all the way to your destination without braking. You know, in the sim you can take a few liberties and just use those all-purpose round figure numbers and you're close enough. Yeah, and I forget, so Upshot says the Saratoga, we try to keep it around 65%. Yeah, and I can't remember what this equates to. 22, 22, and 14. Although, is this telling me right here? 58%? So that's nice and conservative. If that's accurate. I felt like, at least at higher altitude, 22, 22, and 14 was a little bit more of an aggressive, like a higher speed cruise rather than a high efficiency cruise. But down here, it's possible that it's a little more conservative. I haven't really, I don't spend a lot of time looking at this gauge. Maybe I oughta. Okay, we got like an apostrophe-shaped island here on the second bend. And then we got this escape track kind of thing. So yeah, I think what we're looking at is here. And so we're 6 miles to the east. So we'll stay down to the south, and then we'll enter on a left base here. Field elevation 149, so 150, so 1150 is going to be our pattern. You know what? I don't really I would feel better about... Oh, I kind of do see it. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do a little bit more of a proper pattern entry then, because I'm not sure that I see the runway. But it should be kind of right in here somewhere. Right where you got this river from the north that joins. And then it's just to the northwest corner of that confluence there. So like right on the bank here, like maybe this. But since I can't really tell, I'm going to keep 2,000. We're going to pass the... we're going to pass the field east to west, and then once we have a better picture of what it looks like, I'll swing down and we'll do a proper 45 left downwind entry. That'll make me feel a little bit better. Upshot says we have a plane with one of those. You got to keep your eyes glued on the cylinder head temps. Yeah, that's the one thing that I do look at in this aircraft, because the cylinder head temp gauge here, I forget which of the cylinders it's probed to, but it's not the hottest one. So that's the one thing I do kind of pay attention to. If one of them starts flashing at me, I will reduce the RPMs. But yeah, no, you don't. Yeah, you don't need to send me the supplement. The A2A simulations sends a good amount of documentation. I mean, they really do send an almost complete POH with this aircraft. So they've got good documentation for it. But, you know, it's just, honestly, it's just more laziness. Like, you know, I'm not going to spend an hour, you know, going over, you know, wind to loft reports and you know, calculate ISAs for, you know, for optimal fuel burn at such and such altitude. I'm just not into that. You know what I mean? I get that if I was flying this for real, I would want to be into that, because I would want to be, you know, setting the power appropriately. But for me, 22-22-14 is good enough. You know, skip all the math and get to the fun part. Yeah, thankfully, ForeFlight does all that for us, says Upshot. Yeah, even better, right? So I skip. So you skip it for, you know, you skip it and I skip it. We're all skipping it. All right. So here's our runway. Or is it the one? Is it right there on the bank, or is it the gravel area past the? I think it's this thing right on the bank, honestly. I think it's the thing right on the bank. So I think what we'll do, and man, we're up at 2,500 now. Does make me feel better. We're still below the cloud basis, so we have probably been legally VFR this entire stream, which is good. Field elevation is 149. Let's just round up and call it 200, and then pattern elevation 1,200. But we're going to swing down here, join the river. We're going to enter on a more traditional 45 to left downwind, but we're going to make sure that we're down at pattern elevation when we do it. Are we tuned to the right frequency? No, we should be on 22.9. So let's go ahead and get to 22.9. We'll get switched over to the correct advisory frequency. Koyukuk. Alright, so I got about 1,000 feet to lose here. And then we'll work on a good, 45 to midfield. So we'll drop power, drop the RPMs, drop the altitude. 1,200 is our target. And yeah, we're going to want to bleed some speed off too, but we can worry about the speed after we get leveled off. And we'll have plenty of time, honestly. You know, we're what? About 4 miles south and west now. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and make that call. Koyukuk traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is about 3 miles south and west at 1,700 descending, 1,200 to join 45, the left downwind, runway 25, Koyukuk. Alright, let's drop the power a little bit more, but let's start spinning the props back up. Help us get slowed down. We want to drop another 150 feet or so here. Okay, and that's not really a proper 45 to midfield. We're a little bit further west than we should be for a 45 to midfield, but we can at least say that we're entering basically just slightly above pattern altitude and at least on a good left downwind. So I feel confident that if there was other traffic in this pattern or entering this pattern, we'd have a good opportunity to see and avoid them. So feel a little bit better about it there. Koyukuk traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is about 2 miles west now, 1,200, and we're entering that left downwind to runway 25, full stop, Koyukuk. And we can keep it at 1,200 while we spin the props up to 24. Speed's naturally going to bleed off, which we want it to. That's good. We can go ahead and drop the gear. We're below 150. And then when we get below the white arc, we picked up a little altitude here. When we get below the white arc, we can drop that first notch of flaps as well. And we can do that now. And we're a little bit tight in on the downwinds. We can kind of swing it maybe slightly wider. Oh, yeah. Please, I'm sorry. Go ahead and get the predictions in for the descent rate upon touchdown. No bot command necessary. Just a number into the chat. Thank you, Mad Noob. Just a number into the chat without the minus sign is fine. We don't need a bot command. We don't need the minus sign. We know they mean a descent rate either way, and the closest predictor gets an automatic entry into our monthly landing rate raffle. Next drawing on August the 31st. Next two are actually occurring on the last day. We always say we do the drawing toward the end of the month, but in these next two cases, it will be on the last day of the month if the schedule holds. All right, props are full. We'll go ahead and get the fuel pump on. Adding just a tiny bit of throttle back in. We don't want to fall out of the sky just yet. Koyukuk traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's left downwind midfield now for runway 25, full stop, Koyukuk. Yeah, it's going to be a very, I'm going to basically do a 180. I didn't turn out on a very wide downwind. This is a very tight downwind. We better make sure we look to our right and see if there's not somebody in a proper downwind for this runway. I don't see anybody. We're okay. Koyukuk traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor's turning left base and then immediate left final. Left to final, that is, for runway 25, full stop, Koyukuk. We're making a left-hand final, everyone. All right, fuel pump. Yeah, fuel pump we got on. We got the final notch of flaps in. We do want to do kind of a quick wings level here. Check for anybody on the straight in. Don't see anybody. We're overshooting the turn though. However, I'm sure we need to get some throttle out. Get the speed coming off. think we've actually, I thought we overshot. We rolled out kind of almost right on it. Then we overshot a tiny little bit, but not nearly as bad as I thought. We have overshot the speed. So we'll bring the power down, get the speed bled off, and then we'll throw just a tiny little bit of throttle back in so that we don't stall it out. We've got a lot of extra speed yet still. This, at least, knock on wood, looks like a nice smooth surface. It'll be the first one tonight. And seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me, at least right now, that we don't have much of a crab angle, if any at all. Okay, now the speed's a little low. Add a little throttle just to make sure we don't fall out of the sky here. It's got a few little pock marks in it and a little bit of a slope change about a quarter of the way down here. But I think we can get in over the surface, add just a tiny little pitch adjustment, and just start smoothly backing the power out. Touchdown. Okay, we'll take that. 1,000 RPMs. And then I didn't see where the parking area was. Koyoka traffic, Comanche 514 Delta Victor is down and back taxiing runway 2625 rather. Koyoka. Yeah, I still don't see a parking area. Maybe I'm going the wrong way. Hold on a zip. Oh, there we go. Alright, well, let's get the RPMs back down to 1,000. Alright, well, we ended on a good one. Wind took it easy on me. That's always helpful. But we ended on a good one. The marshaller way out there. No, I'm going to park next to the building. Duh. Strobes, landing lights, pitot heat, fuel pump off, and flaps can be stowed. Too good to walk? Yeah, well, you've seen me. I'm not a big walker. I mean, I should be. Maybe that's part of the problem. Yeah, that'll do right there. Okay, brakes are on. RPMs to 1,000. Let's pull the mix out until it starts to drop just a touch. Okay, there we are. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Give me just a moment to go through the shutdown here. And then we'll go over our winners for the final entry into our landing rate raffle. So COM 1, Nav 1 off, COM 2, Nav 2 off, transponder off, ADF off, and the avionics master off. We're going to do what they call a live mag check. So magneto switch is funny. If a wire comes off, then when you shut the magnetos off, the magnetos are still live. So in order to make sure that magneto wire, that lead wire did not come off, it's kind of the opposite. Every other circuit, if the wire comes off, that breaks the circuit. Magneto, somehow if the lead wire comes off, that cuts power, the mags could still be live. So we're just going to blip the mags down real quick. Make sure that it does indeed kill power. And it does. So now that that's checked, back down to 1,000. Matter of fact, we can pull the throttle all the way to idle, let it settle in, and then we'll go to mix cutoff. Mags come the rest of the way off now. Fuel valves can be shut. Control lock can come on. Is that really simulated in this aircraft? No, that was something I picked up from, we had some Canadian friends, Melvin Leroy. Was it the Foxes, I think? Or maybe Canadian Captain Mustache that kind of taught me that. And I hear that it's more of a thing it's taught more by the Canadian aviation authorities than the FAA as something that you do. So that kind of makes sense to me. But yeah, I've heard that it's just a procedural thing that that's done. It's taught more in Canada than here in the U.S., but it's definitely a good thing to check. Yeah, we need to contact A2A immediately because they need to simulate that possibility that live mag check would fail. Speaking of things that failed, I forgot to turn off the nav lights and the beacon light and the battery switch. But now that's all off. Plane is completely shut down. We can go ahead and jump out. We will go ahead and close and latch the door. Go ahead and grab our stuff out, because probably I always do that last, but I think in reality, the storage compartment is where all your chocks and tie downs are going to be. So you want to kind of do that first. They're not just going to be placed neatly there for you. You kind of got to get them out of the bag. So anyway, so we'll go ahead and do the walk around. We'll place the, we're not really inspecting anything. We're just securing the aircraft. So we can get the tie down and wheel chock on the right side. We'll do the tie down and the wheel chock on the left side, not necessarily in that order. Get the pitot cover back on. And the floating tie down there in the back. And there we go. We already got the stuff out. So I would say we are good. So let's not moonwalk right off of the pad here. But anyway, there we are. There's a nice closing shot. Weather, fantastic Alaskan weather the entire day. And then let's take a peek at that final landing and see what the stats look like. I was happy with how it worked out. Let's just let's see how it was scored. Well, it wasn't scored. No static port cover that I'm aware of in this aircraft, Matt. Then we got the pitot cover, but I'm not aware of the plane coming equipped with a static port cover. Scored us 85 out of 100. It did knock us down for touchdown zone and center line and crabbing. The rest of the scores were pretty good. Let's take a look at the telemetry. 21 was, we squeaked it on there, but we kind of went past the touchdown zone in order to make that happen. So, yeah, we floated it along just to finesse it just a little bit, but I was happy. And yeah, we were drifting left when that happened. Not much of a crosswind, as we said on the way in. It didn't feel like there was much of a crosswind, and that's correct. But I was drifting left, and that could have been poor airmanship that I didn't realize I was drifting left, but I also don't know that I saw centerline markings out there, so possibly that I just wasn't lined up with the center of the runway because there wasn't a reference for it. But that's okay. I mean, overall, yeah, and again, I think this pitch right here was not the poor glide path control. I think that was a change in terrain elevation as we came over the shoreline there. But yeah, and it looked like we came back up a little bit, or I was over controlling pitch again. Either is possible. But anyway, overall, I was pleased with it. 21 was the feet per minute that registered, so that's what you guys wanted to predict against. So yeah, looks like whoever put in lowest is going to win that one, and Upshot 2020 is going to be the winner for that one. All right, cool deal. And Upshot 2020, where are we? PFKU. Almost looks like one of those words that you all are convinced I don't say ever. PFKU on 8/19. Upshot is one of the ones that has heard me say some of those words. All right, friends. Well, thanks for hanging out with us on our river run. And again, we've got 2 more episodes. We've consolidated. We were going to have 3, but I consolidated it. We do have 2 more episodes to finish out the Yukon River season of River Run. And then I think we're going to take a little break from River Run because we're going to be focusing on working through the Boston Virtual ARTCC Wings Over New England program and the New York ARTCC Flight Quest challenges. So we're going to be working on both of those series. We'll take a little bit of time off from River Run. We will also need to kind of kick around where our next season of River Run is going to take place. So we've got a few options to kick around. We've got, we'll maybe talk about that late September when we finish up the Yukon here. What might happen as the next season of River Run eventually starts, but I think that'll be more towards spring because, like I said, we're going to focus on getting through Boston Virtual ARTCC and New York Flight Quest challenges. We've also got that Boeing 707, and I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm very pleased with the progress I've made on it. As a matter of fact, I've got a little bit of time before I crash for the evening here at the Slant Alpha household. I'll probably do a quick run-through of my flow list against the checklists in the aircraft to make sure that I'm not missing anything super, super obvious. Now, to be clear, there is no point at which I expect to know that Boeing 707 inside and out. I am focusing on just the very, very basics of normal procedures in that aircraft, and that's all I really ever concern myself with is normal procedures. I'm sure that there will be nuances that I pick up along the way, things that I fumble through or I don't do quite right, or maybe there'll be things that I do out of order at first as I'm beginning to learn the aircraft, but I'm going to try and do it as close as I can to the real world checklists and flow lists. I posted in the announcements there was a streamer that did a walkthrough with it, a pretty thorough walkthrough with it, with the United Airlines manuals for it. So that was kind of cool to have him talk through those resources and how United approached some of those specific configurations and procedures that they employed for that 707. But I'm at the point now where I'm very close to being comfortable. I'm going to take it up for a test flight, maybe do a couple run-throughs. And then my plan is, if all goes according to plan, that second Friday in September will probably be there's no Friday night ops that night, and that might be because it's a tragic anniversary. So that it might be intentional that there's no Friday night ops scheduled for that evening. However, I had put on the schedule originally that we were going to take the 737 over into Greece and practice some of those real hard challenges into the Aegean Islands. But I think what we might do is flip that back another month. We've already been putting that off for months now. Why not? What's one more? But that might be the night that we end up taking the 707 out for a first full official run on stream. And really, honestly, guys, there's a really cool another thing I posted in the announcements. TimetableImages.com has a really cool 1970 Pan Am schedule that has a ton of cool 707 flights in it. And the nice thing about these Pan Am schedules, if you look at them, it identifies per trip exactly what equipment they use on these. So you can see the ones that are marked with 747s, and of course that was the big thing. They were just, you know, everyone was excited about the 747s, and even there were marketing. It's the finest specimen in the air, and here's how you catch one. And they got a guy with a net catching a 747 somewhere. So obviously that's what they were focused on. But look at all these flights that they did in 707s in this era, 1970. And some good ones, even domestically. Now this is Braniff, so I guess the Pan Am ones did the international portions, but Chicago to Shannon, a bunch of stuff that goes New York to Shannon or Chicago to Shannon. We have this one here that's that's DC-8. The 707 here where it goes Boston to Shannon, right? No, Boston to Heathrow. Sorry. Baltimore to Boston to Heathrow. That's extra cool. That was in a 707. Pan Am 56. A daily right through my birthday, although it was 4 years before it. But down on this page, look, some more 707 flights that go Boston to, of course, you know, this is all long-haul stuff. Santa Maria, Lisbon, Barcelona. But then look, once you get into Europe, look at these little short hops that they would run in Europe. Lisbon, Barcelona, Nice, Rome. Man, you could do a lot of these international legs. Just some short hops through Europe and Western and Eastern Europe, and then even into Beirut and Tehran. So we could really do some nice international flying that we have not done on the stream by really diving deeply into this 1970 Pan Am schedule and resurrecting and reenacting a lot of these 707 trips. Prague to Dusseldorf, Dusseldorf to Shannon, Shannon back to New York. Yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. I don't know that I'll do a lot of the transatlantic stuff, Melvin, but look at these nice little short hops that they did in 707s all throughout Europe. Yeah, these are all transatlantics. All these end in New York. But look, Helsinki to Stockholm, Stockholm to Oslo, then Oslo to New York. So we could do a stream of these little short hops in Europe before the transatlantic crossing. Down here we got pages and pages of 727s that were all just within Germany. So we can skip that one for 707 purposes, but here we go. Tokyo to Fairbanks, wow. Tokyo to Fairbanks, Fairbanks to New York. Jakarta, Singapore, Singapore, Saigon, Saigon, Manila, Manila, Guam. Look at all those cool little hops. Man, we could work on this book for a year or more, Melvin. Gosh, this is great. The link is in my announcements channel. You want to check that out, Melvin. Anyway, so yeah, super exciting. Gonna have a lot of fun with that aircraft, I'm sure, no doubt. But yeah, September 11th, Friday, September 11th, no VAT USA event on the calendar, probably because of the anniversary, but might be a nice night to go do some European flying and just, you know, get away from that, you know, and make sure that we're not infringing upon anyone's you know, we're not triggering anyone's tragic memories or anything like that. We'll go fly in Europe, but man, that might be a real fun night to do that. All right, cool deal, guys. Well, that wraps up the stream. Now, the next one coming up for you is on Friday. We are going to be back in the DC-6. And what's the VAT USA event on Friday? It's the pioneering one, right? Let me get it in front of me. VATUSA.net. Oh, yeah, here it is, right here on the front page. Pioneering the Pacific. Salt Lake. Oh, PIA, they added one. My thought was Salt Lake to Boise to Portland to Seattle in the DC-6, so a three-hopper. 1, 2, 3. But PIH, I didn't even see that they added that one. It must have been a late add to the event. I always used to say VATUSA.net Pilot Tools Events Calendar. They've moved it. This is a new website. It's under Division Info and Events Calendar. But here we are, Pioneering the Pacific. Pocatello. Okay, that's what they added. Yeah, that's a late add. That wasn't on the original version of the announcement. But my plan was to do Salt Lake, Boise, Boise, Portland, Portland, Seattle. So we'll do that in the DC-6. That'll be Friday. Starts at 2300 Zulu time, which is 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern time. So that is what our plan will be. It'll be my first time flying the DC-6 with the new little radio gadget that I've got here. So that'll be fun. That'll be a little less cumbersome to mouse around and try and grab the radio controls on that little Garmin up top. So that'll make life a lot easier in that DC-6. Of course, we added a lot of things to do in the switches, the red switches that now do a lot of stuff that you do on takeoff and landing sequence. So a lot of that's a lot easier for me to do. Really have gone hog wild and spad.next to make it easier for me to fly those planes with the hardware that I've got. So looking forward to that. And so that'll be Friday. All right. In the meantime, the full show schedule is under the About tab. It's also over on our Discord server. The normal show schedule Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, 2300 Zulu time. We are occasionally off of that schedule for personal obligations, work obligations, especially toward the end of this month. I've got some work obligations coming up. So do check that schedule out to be sure which days I will be on, which days I will not be on. But you will also get a sense there of what you will see on that particular stream. What you do see here on this channel is a blend of this aircraft, the DC-6, the FlySimware Lear 35, the BAE-146 from Just Flight, a vintage regional airliner, and then the PNDG-737 800 series, the one modern airliner that we do fly occasionally on the channel. And then coming soon, that Inabuild's working title collaboration on the Boeing 707 for Flight Sim 2024. So, new exciting addition to the hangar, and I can't wait for it. And like I've been yammering on about it for about 15 minutes now, so I'm sure you guys get the sense that it's something that I'm really looking forward to. And we'll get back to doing, some more airliner flying and some more vintage, like some just, going back to the glory days of Pan Am, the golden age of aviation, as they call it. You might be able to see the Pan Am board game that's over my right shoulder here. Gift from my brother-in-law. It might be just barely out of the corner of the shot there, but we'll show that to you when we get that 707 up and running. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. So we show the final version of the slant artwork adventure. Yeah, no, we did not. So we started with myself just up here overlooking the settlement of Ruby, Alaska, the Yukon Gold Rush settlement. We added the American flag there because we took off from Rampart, and I forget who it was. It was like, well, that's a reference to the Star Spangled Banner over the ramparts we watched. So we added the banner there, the Old Glory. We then added. We had some problems. We had a really bouncy landing at a very rough, allegedly gravel strip that was more like a rock strip. So we broke some landing gear parts, or we theorized that we did. Now that guy had some messed up hands. We later fixed that. But we held some gear parts up as a trophy. We had some mystic flooding, or I don't know what Ori Darkwind was going for with that request, but we did have a little bit of flooding in the town. We did fix the guy's hands, and then we added the ditched Piper Archer down there in the floodwater. So, in honor of the disastrous landings that we had earlier in the stream, there is our disaster stream there, featuring Ruby, Alaska. So there we go. There's our slant artwork adventure for the evening, and thanks to everybody who participated along with us on that. All right, friends, that'll wrap us up. Who are we going to give a raid over to? What do we got going on here? We got a few folks, a few very good friends that are streaming. Oh my goodness. Mustafa is taking his 707 for the maiden flight. So speak of the devil. You want to go see a good preview? Man, I might hang out and watch some of that. A good preview of the 707. There's Mustafa's taxiing out in it right now. He's doing a JFK to Atlanta in it. So let's go watch him and hang out with him while he does that. All right? That sounds like a great plan. I'm going to do that too. I'm going to hang out with him for a little bit. So raid Mustafa. You guys go. Make sure you tell him Slant Alpha sends his love, and let's get over to him before we get to airborne so we can watch him take off in the thing. All right, friends? We'll see you Friday from the cockpit of the DC-6 in Salt Lake City. But between now and then, have a great rest of your week. Be happy, healthy, and safe in all your travels and adventures between now and then. Excuse me. Sorry. Take care, friends. Good night.